We're back on Loose on the Lead. Always one of our special and most favored episodes of the summer when the Matisse brothers can join us. And Duke, the expiry date we've been reached on Duke, who's going to head back to California soon. Welcome, Duke and Paul Matisse.
Thanks, Steve. Great to be here.
Steph,
as
Steve,
always.
how you doing?
Steph.
We're good, and some of you that we're following on Twitter, you can follow both Duke and Paul. And Paul heralded his arrival here by remembering back to last year's visit when we discussed picking blueberries up there by Schuylerville. Yeah. But I went a little big. I went for melons. I went melon. Remember, you're a melon.
For the melon turf course.
But I'm bummed. There you go. Exactly. Which by the way, yesterday a bit of. I mean, that 11th should have been taken off at the beginning of the day. And frankly, the clods that were being thrown up, the course took a hit yesterday, and everybody understands we want to run the grass races, but you can't do it when you've got another 3 weeks of racing here. You can't tear the thing up to shreds, and people have to adjust. You've got to just do what you can when they come off the turf.
Yeah, without a doubt. The thing to remember about we were on the melon turf to start with, the way it's been playing, I think, is the most important story. About the turf, it's favored the outside speed for most of the meet. So there's still hope to make some money off of that, I think, in this meet. I think that's probably the best angle, wouldn't you say, of the...
I think it got worse yesterday because the horse in the sprint was about in the 10 path down the stretch. So.
All the horses on the inside are at a disadvantage on the melon turf. So if you go back and watch the replays for the rest of the meet, keep that in mind.
We're at the halfway point, 20 cards in the book and 20 starting today to get to Labor Day. How about expanding on that in terms of the first half? It sure feels like the general serious playing population have struggled a little bit. I don't hear a lot of people crowing how they're crushing the meet.
Yeah, there haven't been a lot of opportunities. I don't think it's just been difficult. You have so many off the turf races and a lot of 2-year-old races, and Todd's not winning in any, and Chad's not winning too many. So I mean, it's not the normal Saratoga, that's for sure.
Well, the thing about Saratoga, I say this every year. When you come to Saratoga, it's almost like the beginning of the season. Everybody argues with me that every time, but then you get here and it's completely different than anything that's happened at Churchill and anything that's happened at Belmont. And I always tell everybody to be patient and pick your spots here early in the meet. But you just get up here and the excitement is, just
overwhelmed.
Gets you. Your Twitter, Facebook friend, Battler, he's 99% of the time he talks about nonsense. But the one expression that he has is that you can't lose your composure when you're gambling. And
why?
And that's the really, it's so important up here that not to do that. And I see it, time and time again. My son, he's had a horrible meet, and he's already packed it in and wants to quit. And so, it's an easy thing to do, but you have to, try your best not to fall for all the hoopla that goes with the beginning of the Saratoga meet.
As we enter the second half, you talk about replays. There's been certainly portions of the meet and certain periods where we've had some unique circumstances, including that handful of days about a week and a half ago, give or take, where we were getting kind of that balcony, the Belmont balcony, horses rallying from off the pace and outside, something we rarely see here. And when you talk about the winners coming from certain places in the paths or from the outside on the melon, this lends itself to bet backs and bet against. I mean, how do you want to suggest that people dive into this second half of the meet?
I did those replays actually yesterday, so there are quite a few horses that were on dead rails on, I believe it was August 4th, 5th, and 6th, I think were the days that were pretty severe outside closer.
Definitely 5th and 6th, right?
Definitely, no, I think it's definitely the 4th and 5th. I think the 6th is questionable, but it's definitely the 4th and the 5th. And I mean, I did note a lot of horses that did run well on the inside, so there are going to be horses to play off those days if you're paying attention.
And I keep in mind this track has jumped around and it's changed quite a bit. Primarily because of the weather. Primarily some to do with the new modern ways of they do tracks. It's not the old school way of doing things with track maintenance. So you got to be paying attention. There's within day changes. That's something that's a new handicapping phenomena that say 5-10 years ago we never had to worry about. I think speed figures are going to be very difficult to do. I know last week I had a lot of trouble. I noticed in the times yesterday, you're going to be you're going to have a hard time really doing those, Steve. I mean, it's just an absolute. The 6.5 furlong race went 119 in the Adirondack, and then later on, it seemed to speed up a little bit, and it's questionable if the rail got good late in the day. So, the guys are doing their homework. I think are going to do good off of this speed.
Well, and that's a theme that we can advertise and suggest at all times. If you're taking the game seriously, you got to put in the work.
Well, this is also a good time to fold in because we were talking before about days like this where they're off the turf, and I said I talked to you early in the meet walking out, and it was one of these days, and you said usually I do pretty well on a day like this. I'm the same because I think it's a day when the general public kind of doesn't get clued in often on the switch to the main track, and so you get some false favorites, and there's some value out there potentially on days like this.
Yeah, you got to make adjustments on days like this because you look at the form and you got 6 turf races and now they're all running on the dirt. So probably the average person can't catch up. You can't catch up at least before the pick 5 starts. That's for sure. So now you got, if you can quickly generate, put the scratches in and form some opinions early on, you might be able to beat everybody to the
theory too about these days too with off the turf. I think in the modern day handicapping, there's so much transferring of information and picks and steam. It's like all over the place. And when this comes up, it's like it's out the window. Nobody has any idea. And now it's back to the old school handicapping. And that's why I think that you and I and the guys who the traditional handicappers do better on days like these. I know it's a little bit of a stretch, but I think there's some truth in it.
No, there's a lot of truth in it. Yesterday, Duke, you mentioned having to move quickly when word came that races 4 and 5 were coming off the turf. That gave you only about 40 minutes to refashion if you wanted to play the pick 5. And in that group of races, obviously the tough horse was Cairo Cat, but if you had the chance to really go back and dig around, you could have come up with Cairo Cat, made some. You couldn't on Thoroughgraph. I tell you what, as the Thoroughgraph horse for dirt, he was there.
Yeah, I mean the race was wide open. It was a spread race. Even when it came off, it was a spread race.
Well, but Greek Alphabet paid $7.
Well, that was the key. I think that's a better analogy. That horse became a
single.
There he
is.
Yeah, Greek Alphabet became my single of the day.
How about that?
But the problem was I didn't have Cairo Cat.
Yeah, right.
And the other problem was I was getting a sandwich about 12:45, and I had to get the pick 5 in by post time, so it was kind of tough. So I was walking to the track. And
I think we got a little unlucky in that race too. The one with Cairo Cat. I mean, I think he might arguably been the 5th best horse. The way that the race was run, they kind of the 14 forced the hand of Dylan Davis to go early, which we used that long shot, the 5, who ran really well, and then the horses that came on the outside got. The 8 started going in and out.
Oh, the 8 was zigzagging through the stretch.
On the other horses. And
that was the favorite. Was that the Chad? That was
the overbet.
That was the Chad.
The 3 in that race ran really well, I think. Wasn't that a Todd Firster that got left and circled? Yeah.
They're all getting left and circling.
Yeah.
What is that's something people have had to adjust to.
People asked me that yesterday, and I went to John the Clocker for maybe some info on that. He thinks it's because he's training most of his horses over at Oklahoma. That's what he says. He says the gate's different there versus here. I don't know much about that, but that's what he told me.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, Cairo Cat obviously boosts what ends up being a bonanza pick 5. The other day, I'll also mention the 2 horses. There was the carryover that we had going into Thursday, and Mamo the invader from was that the Finger? No, the Finger Lakes invader was Sally Iorio in the nightcap, Mama White Sox. How that horse paid what it paid, $18, and how Mamo paid $10 was astounding.
Well, I think it goes back to what Seth and I were talking about. You know, it's just when the races makeup changes quickly, I think it's an advantage for everybody because everybody is we're in a new environment. And I listened to you earlier, and I do think there's some truth in the fact that there's the robotic wagering is probably a little behind on these off the turfs. My nephew and I we're working on a project to do a little robotic stuff, and all the things that you have to be on your toes to do is it's very difficult, and I'm sure it's something that it's probably not high priority because it's not a lot of races per year, and I think that it's not an easy thing to accomplish when you start going through the process of trying to all right, what am I going to do? We got to switch all of the stuff from turf to dirt. Then we got to get the scratches. Then we have to, the betting patterns. Then we have to analyze how the race is being bet, when it was come off the turf. There's a lot there for a computer to pick up, And I think I said this on the radio show with you before. I mean, those are things that I think the handicappers will always have an advantage over the computer side.
Well, and that quote of yours on radio about a month ago really took root. This came after the Dwyer, and after there was complete bewilderment at what transpired in the Dwyer. And we did have Marshall Graham with us a couple of weeks ago and discussed some of it with him. A great opportunity to have the two of you here, and knowing the kind of volume wagering that you do. Paul, from your perspective, and Duke, give us how you suggest the serious and the casual player, how they should react and view the computer batch wagering, the computer robotics that are creating this late odds change scenario that people are really frustrated with, and we understand why they're frustrated, but like anything around this game, understand it and utilize your understanding to take advantage as best you can.
Well, I mean, understanding is the most important thing, I think. That you're going to see some changes coming up. I've talked to some people that have the technology. We talked about that too, trying to make things better for the better and giving them more technology in their hands. And I think we're going to see it. We're going to see imputed odds for what the odds should be based on the will pays, and then we're going to see odds based on the exactas, and hopefully we don't have the technology because the tow companies are 30, 40 years behind, but I think they'll even get the triples and supers once they realize how powerful it is that we can see, all right, that this horse is really, he's on the board at 6-1, but his overall odds on all the pools are 4-1, so.
How is it that the South American tote companies are able to give us the veils, the trifecta veils, and we can't?
Well, we shouldn't go down that.
Is this a rabbit hole, Duke? Are you ready to? Duke's the steam is coming out of Duke's ears.
Yeah, you don't want to get me talking about it. I mean, I'm frustrated enough when I see a horse that I bet at 6-1 and goes to 5-2 in the last flash. So I mean, it is amazing.
But you do know it's coming. I mean, are you wagering?
Do I know it's coming?
Your best.
I think sometimes it comes and sometimes it doesn't. That's the frustrating part. So when you do bet a horse that you think is going to go off, maybe you think he's going to go off 4-1, and he gets buried like to 2-1. That's extremely frustrating because you're not betting enough, and you don't have the opportunity to bet as many bets as they do in the last 20 seconds.
And you can't counter it.
There's no way to counter that. I mean, once it goes down, what do? I'd rather cancel the bet.
I've asked you on occasion to elaborate about the B and C tracks. I mean, the assumption is that players on your level are focused on California and Florida and New York, but in fact, you're quite willing and quite happy to bet the B and C circuits.
But they're hurt worse. I mean, that's the one thing I've noticed by this new wave of computer playing. A place like Mountaineer, which was an absolute gold mine for years and years. It was a night thoroughbred track that, you know, a lot of players would play after work and that sort of thing, and it was just, it was pretty easy pickings. But the computer guys have come in and just, you know, just demolished any value you have at all at Mountaineer, and it's a huge problem for the industry, you know, and it's gonna, you know, you gotta deal with it as a player. You gotta deal with you know, the way you can, but you know, I do believe there's some advantages, but I don't think it's an easy, you know, the solutions aren't easy, you know, and I find that frustrating when you ask me, or if somebody else asks me, you know, walking around the track, you know, what do I do? It's not a 3-word answer, you know.
There's not a lot you can do. I mean, what can you do? What can you do when a horse drops that kind of odds after you play it?
If you are part of the betting public that is frustrated with this, are you better off trying to leverage your opinion into pick fours and pick fives, and where they can't participate to the level they do
Well,
individuals?
that's generally what we do, but the problem in New York when you bet a pick four or pick five is right now is either weather or track changes. I mean, at Gulfstream, I seem to be doing better at Gulfstream than anywhere, and I think it's because there's large fields, and you know they seem to have, you know, not a lot of what you call wise guy, big time odds changes at the end, and I think it's because the races are difficult.
Which is interesting because you know, the volume continues to be rather remarkable at Gulfstream during this off season. Certainly, I mean, dwarfing what Calder would do at this time of year, and we know that the computer groups have cozied up, or Stronach Group has cozied up to them.
Certainly, yeah, but I don't know why I'm doing better there, but it just seems to be, you know, maybe because I'm following it closely. You know, maybe a lot of guys like them aren't, you know, like Paul and Seth aren't. I don't know.
Is it also potentially, and I don't want to completely color it this way, but at least really for the most part, it's cheap racing right now. It's lower level, and in terms of the quality, I mean, there are allowances and there are maiden specials and so forth. But is it, you know, I've heard I think it was probably Brad Free that convinced me several years ago when I used to voice frustration at you know, cheap maiden races and at low level starter allowances, and Brad said, I love them. They're the easiest for me to handicap because the horses are formful.
Yeah, they're great, and there's a lot of conditions. You know, there's a lot of conditions. Horses can actually make drops like they used to, like in the old days. There's small
Claiming
drops.
races.
A lot of cheap claiming, never won twos, never won
Real
threes.
claiming races,
And so
which we've lost in New
you
York.
learn which races were more live than others, and not only that, they've had a little bit of a dead rail down there for a while, which is becoming the norm everywhere. But and that's helped too, because sheep players don't win as much when there's dead rails.
So that's interesting. You don't like the open claimers, or you like the open claimers as opposed to now that these conditional claimers that have become kind of the norm all over the place?
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I think the open claimers are the most formful races that we've ever had in racing. But we do have a lot of other outside factors. I mean, you know, this is one of the things that I'm trying to tackle. I'm on this new Thoroughbred Ideas Foundation board, and I'm trying to push that we have some problems, particularly in New York, with the condition book, you know, big stables dominating, and just getting the right races to go, you know, and we have to really use some new ideas to come up with, you know, think outside the box completely than from what we've had in the past, because the old stuff's not working, and you know, the weather's been bad, and I know that's hurt the racing a little bit here at this meet, but NYRA has a problem with you know, a small product problem right now, because we're not getting the full fields in with good horses enough.
You're not getting a full field claiming $25,000 race.
No, there is.
I mean,
they're
that's
not there.
if you don't get that, I mean, what?
We don't have a one other than. You know, I mean, a one other than is a staple of New York racing.
Right.
I was talking to Mark Hopkins about, you know, figures related, and he said, well, you just got to compare the one other thens. But I said to him, no, the one other than doesn't resemble. The one other than in 1988 doesn't resemble the one in 2018. It's you know, it's 5 horses with 2 trainers, you know, or 6 horses with 3 trainers.
We don't run enough dirt races with more than 6 horses in it. I mean, you think about all the dirt races they've run up here that were scheduled for the dirt. There's never, if it's not a 2-year-old race, it's got 6 horses in it.
Even a 35 claimer on the turf, which is a staple of Saratoga. I mean, when I was younger, that was always, you know, one of the best races. It was 14 horses. You know, an Angel would split 3 horses 3 times and win it. You know, you just remember these, you know, these things about it. And now, you know, we don't even have those. I mean, they used to run the first race of the meet. It was always 12 horses, and you know, on the. Yeah.
Did you read Clancy's column the other day in the Saratoga Special, where he was giving some ideas aimed at the idea of, and he talked about conditions, and there were a few good ideas in there, but one of them was conditions that would be for horses that were bought for, you know, like let's say less than $100 or less than $50,000, which then would take maybe some of those big outfits out.
Santa Anita experimented with it all this past winter. Rick Hammerly put that. They did that, and it included homebreds, and you know, up pops Mike Pegram with some homebreds by Cat Burglar and whatever that Baffert's training, and so even under that scenario, there's some challenges.
Without a doubt. I mean, it's not going to be easy. I'm not somebody that's being critical and saying, you know, they're doing this wrong or it's anybody's fault. I just think moving forward, if we're gonna make this product bettable, you know, and I think it should just even get better. You know, it seems like everything else is better at Saratoga. You know, when you're here, you know, the worst part is that the races aren't better. You know, and I have some crazy ideas, like I always do. But even if they use, you know, just partially some of them, but I'm sure there's a lot of smart minds. And you were talking about Marshall Graham, and there's hundreds, or not thousands, of smart people that are in racing, and the fans are probably the smartest. You know, I always say that. You know, when you talk to somebody in the stands, and I've been given about 15 horses at this meet. I think every single one of them run first or second. I look at the figures, I look at it, and I say, yeah, it looks all right, but I don't have any idea why they like them, and you know, because horse players are smart, you know, so and they're going to realize that the product is not as good, you know, and then like Duke, he's going to go to Gulfstream, and somebody else is going to make a different move. So we have to make the product better, and I don't like the exclusion on that, you know, for Seth's point, you know, because I don't think the idea is to get rid of, you know, Chad Brown, or to get rid of Todd Pletcher, you know, or to get rid of Graham Motion, the guys who have thousands of horses. But because you know what, if you start doing that, then they're going to have a horse for that race too. You know, we need to think of it in a different way. You know, of doing the races, and hopefully, with this Thoroughbred Ideas Foundation, we can make some kind of step in that direction.
You gotta keep the little guys in the game, though. If you don't keep the little guys, if they can't make the money. It's just like, remember if you go back like 20 years, Bay Meadows was a great track to bet. Right. And then when Hollendorfer started winning 40-50% of the races, that place went downhill so fast. And if Chad starts winning 40-50% of the races, it's just you got to keep the little guy happy here. Or, you know, he's got to get a ball in here.
And that's another.
So they got to run
New York. I mean, the winter program has got to keep these guys alive more, and we don't want to go down that road either. But with the workman's comp and the challenges that the smaller trainers are facing, that has definitely been a factor on the product here. There's no doubt in my mind that's been a huge factor.
And again, we should remind people you guys are keyed into what's going on there with your brother, who's training on the
who threatens to quit about every week.
You talked about when you were young, and years ago at Saratoga, that picture you put up. Do we have? I sent it to the.
Oh, really?
Yeah, everybody would enjoy it. If do we have it?
Right.
Oh, good. Here, you got. This is precious. You're gonna love it.
Yeah, I tweeted that out on Duke's birthday.
With the Saratoga shirts too, yeah, like
the original ones. I think that's the first year.
That was giveaways.
The giveaway.
That was the first giveaway shirts.
Yeah,
81.
81, and they faded terribly, unfortunately. Somebody at Twitter asked me if I had one, and I wish I did, because they'd be worth, but they faded really bad. But they were.
He's already got binoculars and probably a stopwatch too.
Exactly. It's amazing. And you've already got a look of disgust.
That is true.
You're already pissed off about
That's
something.
right.
He was probably yelling at Velasquez or something. That did it.
Georgie Velasquez, not John.
Yeah, Georgie.
Speaking of Cordero Velasquez, I got to ask you guys. Obviously, prominent contest players. You typically wind up in Vegas. Have you guys qualified for Vegas? And just let people know, how many contests do you play a year to qualify?
I've played probably 10 this year, mostly at Santa Anita because that's closest to me. And I'm double qualified for the NHC.
Nice.
I finished third in the last tournament, and the tournament that comes to mind that I played was the one that the World Horse Players thing, because I was like sixth with one race to go, and I took a really big swing in the last race to get to first, because I thought it was a big edge if you got to first, the way that new format is with the blinds and all that. So, and my son and I were watching the last race in the contest room, and horse takes the lead. He's like 7 or 8 to 1, and I got 3,000 to win on him, and he gets nailed on the wire, and I finished maybe 12th, so I missed the top 8. And then I get a text from my brother Paul. He said, I tried to call you. I liked that horse in the last at Santa Anita. So after being extremely upset, I was even more upset because he hit the race, and I didn't like the horse. So, but I play. I don't play too many, but I play. I definitely want to get into the NHC every year, and
that's pretty good though.
That's the best
double
tournament.
Qualify and you play 10 tournaments. That's not bad.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like to play some of these other ones that are just with the big entry fees. There's so much going into the prize fund, and if there's nothing really there to win, I mean, what's there to win? I'm not going to put up half my money into a prize fund that I don't need an NHC spot, so it's like I just don't see the value in it. But I mean, I like to play them. I mean, but the NHC is definitely our favorite tournament by far.
Yeah, I qualified for the NHC in Santa Anita as well. I played Monmouth and I played Saratoga for the money contest. I had a weird thing happen when I qualified for the Santa Anita, because it was a pick your prize type thing, and the Pegasus is worth the most, and I had a chance to get it in the Pegasus, the BCBC, or the NHC, because I finished second, and I took the NHC, which everybody was making fun of me on. But my two main goals, that I want to win the NHC and I want to win the World Series in Las Vegas. They're my two major ones. I wouldn't mind winning this one here at Saratoga. This one's a little tougher now because it's 2 days and it's kind of a lesser thing. But if this got bigger, I wouldn't mind winning one at Saratoga either. But those are my two main goals of the year. So you have to qualify for the NHC. So I play till I get qualified. And then after that, I don't play all that much. I thought about this after because of that contest, and Duke and I are going to play 12,500 on those races on Gulfstream on the Pegasus, and some of these other guys probably aren't gonna, but it's already factored into our bankrolls, like the BCBC even. I'm going to bet a lot on the BCBC. If I'm right during the Breeders' Cup Day, without the contest,
right,
and it's in our factor. So they say, well, it's worth this much. Well, it's not that much because we've already factored it in our betting for the year that we're going to play a lot on those days. So. And you can't get in the NHC if you don't qualify. So that's a kind of a elite spot for me. So I know the mathematics aren't there, but for me, that was an easy decision.
I'll toss this out there as well because I've never been out there. I wish I had more time to play the contest. I love them. You have to think a little bit differently. But and I will applaud my co-host because when the NHC out in Vegas comes up, I listen to your coverage on the radio and you think, oh, a horse racing handicapping contest on the radio. How I said, but it's always a lot of fun. And you guys were on last, and you just get the whole feeling of, you talked about how smart horse players are, and you get the feeling by listening to the radio show just how true that is, and the camaraderie and the fun. I would love to play more and qualify myself, but it seems like that Vegas contest just is a real room full of real horse players. They're totally into it, smart guys and women as well.
Yeah, the atmosphere at the NHC is different from almost any of the other tournaments. I mean, the money tournaments, you don't get that where everybody's in the same room and people go bet on
Well, if a big shot like
machines.
Steve Bick's going to show up too, you know.
Yeah, and when Steve's there, he makes it. 'cause
You know it's a big deal, you know.
I barely missed the final table again, and so we went on for what did we want, a couple hours?
Oh, it was, and
Yeah,
it
it
was
was
the
fun.
highlight
It
of the
was fun.
coverage.
Yeah, so we went on a couple
because
hours
You
and-
guys were, the gloves were off. You want raw opinion. These two, and you want to understand what's going on in the mind of a player in that scenario. And
It was also
that
great.
was-
The winner scored, and Paul was after the winner scored with the final bet.
Yeah.
Paul said, "I wouldn't have played that." Even after he won it, you were
No, I
critical.
still think he made a mistake. He picked the winner. The horse won, and I still think he played wrong. But that's racing, Contests are a little bit different, though. You got to, like you said, you got to play a little bit differently. And he set himself up to lose. I mean, his ability overcame his strategy, to be able to pick the winner.
That was great, though. It was definitely a lot of fun.
Couple of minutes left, and I do want to circle back and get a couple of opinions and maybe some second half concepts. You mentioned being out at Santa Anita, and I was fortunate enough, just the way the broadcast schedule I laid it out was there for Big Cap Week and for Santa Anita Derby Week.
For you.
Which resulted in being there for Justify's second and third starts. The allowance win. In fact, we were all together.
Yeah, I was with you for the.
And
yeah.
we on the backstretch. You were convinced. Oh my God, Justify's dying. He can't win from there. But we got to watch it, and then of course the Triple Crown run. And got to mention your impressions of this 3-year-old crop that I think is morphing again, and I got a feeling we're in store for a absolutely dynamite Travers. Talk about the second half of the year. We have got the Travers, we've got the Pennsylvania Derby, and I think the 3-year-olds are yet to, the rest of them other than Justify. Your final thoughts on him, and then the rest of this crop going forward.
You really want my thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I think the 3-year-olds this year are probably close to the worst ever. I mean, I don't see any. I mean, Justify, his figures are very, very low for a Triple Crown winner, and I don't see anything up and coming that's improving. But I guess Gronkowski maybe he could.
Just because he's an unknown quantity.
Yeah, because he only had one shot against him and he ran second to him. But I really don't think there's anything out there that. I don't think Todd has much that's going to improve, and I'm not a big fan of that horse. I've just never been a fan of that
Freeze
horse.
coming out of the West Virginia.
He
Ran huge.
Yeah, he's got a good setup. I mean, that's one of the problems I think with all the 3 winners in the West Virginia. They all ran, they all made a step forward figure-wise. Good Magic, Hosberg, and Mr. Freeze, but all of them had good setups. I got a good story about. I had a prediction that Justify was not going to run again. So when the Breeders' Cup Futures came out for the Breeders' Cup Classic, I wanted to play a bunch of them because he was skewing the odds. He was 2-1, I think, in the Breeders' Cup Classic, and I didn't even think he should be 2-1. Though I have a little bit different take on Justify, and I'll wheel back to that. But so I wanted to get a bet in on on the Breeders' Cup Classic. So I've got a bunch of Breeders' Cup Classic bets that have no chance. But I got good value on them, but they have no chance. I mean, I got 50-1 shots and 100-1s on that Dallas Stewart horse and a couple Dale Romans horses, and none of them are going to win.
Code Blue.
But I figured. I think I made Code Blue. I made a good bet though, because at the time they were all longer odds than they should be.
And that's what it's about, whether it's a future book or whether it's day to day.
I have one on Catholic Boy, which I think is an interesting one, because I think he's got upside. If he did win the Travers, he might be able to go forward. I'm not usually a turf to dirt horse, but I think Catholic Boy is a dirt horse running on the turf, who's equally well.
Who's
maybe
he by? Who's Catholic?
Is he Scat Daddy too?
I think he is.
Yeah, and to talk about Justify, I think figure-wise, and I'm a figure guy, so I can be, critical of the horses usually. The only thing I would say about Justify is that Baffert hurried him so much to get into the big races that I don't think it's a weird feeling, because I think we never saw the best of Justify, and I think he would have run a better race down the road, but. The 3 races that won the Triple Crown, you have to agree with Duke. It's probably the worst 3 races that ever won a Triple Crown. But, you know, and that's modern day racing. If you want to, you know, circle it back to the other thing, you know, these trainers can get the horses to run better when they have 2 months.
6 weeks, yeah.
So any horse that's going to win the Triple Crown, probably with this group of trainers and this group of environment, is going to fit this justified mold where, all right, he won the Triple Crown, but we're not going to see the Secretariat where he blossomed in the last race and become the best. You know, that's probably gone, you know, in racing. So I do think we're going to see more Triple Crown winners just because of the environment. Everybody owns every horse. You know, there's no competition between the owners. There's 4 trainers that can win it, you know, because they got all the horses. So, and everybody gives up after the Derby. You know, everybody comes in the Derby.
Everybody wants to be in a Derby.
And
Nobody wants to be in
cares
a
after
Preakness.
that. Nobody wants to win these other races. That's why I tweeted, they got to make these races worth more money.
They got to put more money in the Preakness for sure.
The Preakness has got to be $5 million. The Belmont's got to be $10 million. I mean, the Breeders' Cup Classic and these other races are that much money. Why isn't the Derby, the Preakness, and the Belmont? They're the biggest races we have.
The Derby should be $5 million easy.
Easily.
Easily.
And
It could be $100 million
well,
with the money
there's-
they make.
And there is a move afoot in Kentucky to put Churchill's feet to the fire regarding the Derby purse. That it's almost embarrassing.
Yeah.
It is
It's $1 million from them and $1 million in entry fees.
Right.
I mean,
That's
recognize that the 20 horses are putting up 50 grand each. So how is this race not $5 million?
Creates all this money.
It's preposterous.
They make so much money, it's scary.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I bought tickets this year to sit there. I'm betting $50,000, you know, a day there, and I'm paying $5,000 to sit somewhere. I mean, come on, that's the most ridiculous thing ever.
Yeah, I mean, that race has got to be. I mean, they got. And the stud fee argument is long gone. That, you know, this argument. Well, he's worth so much money because of if he wins the race. Well, first of all, that's not true. We've seen a bunch of them.
We saw from California Chrome
Right, yeah.
by Lucky Pulpit. That got him nothing.
Smarty Jones. I mean, there's a long list of them.
Absolutely. I mean, you can't. This horse was a little different because of the. If
Right.
Scat Daddy was still alive,
Right.
there might have been a different scenario afoot with him staying on, and Baffert could have taken his time, and they could have worked toward a 4-year-old year. But with Scat Daddy dead, this horse becomes, you know, the heir apparent to Scat Daddy.
Yeah, I just don't like that argument. I mean, let's make this race the biggest race in the world, like it should be. You know, personally. And the other two, too. They have to be worth a lot of money, too.
The Preakness has got to go way up.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how they're going to get more people to run it.
And maybe we'll see these horses develop later, too, where it's not a big hurry just to get in the, you know, in the preps. You know, you see a lot of these horses, I think this year in particular, you know, we're talking about the crop, they were over the top in April. You know, a bunch of these horses, you know.
Well, you can run in the Pennsylvania Derby for $1 million, and then the Preakness is only worth that. I mean, why would you run in the Preakness in 2 weeks if you can wait 3 months and run against nothing for $1 million?
It just doesn't make sense.
An opinion today.
An opinion.
Come on. Come up with something.
Melon.
It's a delicious melon. That's a good opinion.
I don't have scratches yet, but
I just pulled them up, so if you mention one that's out, I will alert you.
I like Take Notice in the first race.
Still in.
Still in, okay.
And if Lucas had won the contest, I would have won the contest yesterday if Lucas had won that race where he ran second to 6. I put all my eggs in that basket.
Derby Date.
Yeah.
Talked about that horse on Friday, and then like a moron, I didn't use him right in the race. On Friday, I said to Nick Tamero, I said, I'll tell you who's going to run well out of here is Derby Date. Right. They didn't name the horse Derby Date if they didn't think. I mean, there's a few clues that are out there, folks. I mean, it's as dumb as it sounds.
Yeah, he definitely had talent. That's the old analogy. If somebody names one fast, you know, you can definitely know.
Fast Bullet, Fast Anna, absolutely.
And the other they name Slow or Rat or Ratatouille or something like that. You know.
Well, hopefully Take Notice is well named here today. But I think if he gets aggressive in the first race, I think he'll be really tough. Well, you had some opinions.
Well, I got opinion in the third race. I think Navarro's here to get claimed. I don't think he's not here to win at Saratoga. He's not here to for the sale tonight or anything. I think he's here to get claimed. So I'm kind of against him in that race. Even though he probably didn't get the best of tricks the first time up the lap. It smells to me that the whole purpose of the trip is to get claimed. So that opens up the race if you believe that you know, that had driven is probably the right horse.
I thought Lady Apple might wire the field in the 6th. That horse got a pretty big pace figure. I thought maybe might be able to get in front.
They paid a lot of money for that Lady Apple too.
And they thought highly enough of her to put her right into the stake, and
Yeah.
she almost won. I don't disagree. Moquette has a look in there at a price for the Leblongs as well. Wild Moment, I thought. And then here's Chad with feedback at 9-2, and those are the three that I came up with too.
Yeah, that horse has got a pretty. I think Truth is won first time out. I think that was a half sister to that horse.
I have a horse I'm interested in the race before it, the 5th race, and I don't is the 9 out, Seth?
The nope.
No.
Nine is
I
still in.
didn't think he was going to come out. I think this horse is this filly here is well met, Barclay Tag horse, and it's a little bit of a weird thing because it's a Barclay Tag first time starter. But
Brucia Latera is the
I
horse,
really like
12
the
to
workout
1.
pattern. I like the way she's been working, and the El Padrino has had a lot of first out winners, and Barclay can win first time if
Sure
the
he
horses
can.
are good, and he's had a good meet too. I think the horse is really tricky in there.
What about Leora for Catalano?
That one's
Shoot.
out 8.
That's
I like the 8 too.
Keep an eye out for Leora,
That
who
horse
Wayne
ran well,
Catalano,
yeah.
he talked about on the radio actually with us last week.
Yeah, that was my top pick, but that one.
You
out.
see that Todd's got a full sister to Verrazano running in the last main track only.
Ayers Rock.
Full sister to Verrazano. Oh, I think won by many lengths at Gulfstream in his first start.
The Full Brothers.
That's right.
By Chick out of, what's your mother? I forget your mother's name. Linda. Absolutely productive, and as always, it's just it's so much fun to get you two here.
Now, I feel not today. I've noticed all day. I was watching earlier. I feel sorry for Seth on this Sunday show. You have a big shot. You go around all around the world. You come here on Sundays and you just mail it in half the time. And
That's outrageous.
I feel like Seth is like playing. He's like playing with Willie Mays when he was on the Mets. Award winner, and you come in here.
What award did I win?
Well, I mean, you turn down the Eclipse Award every year, don't you?
Yeah, I guess so. Mail it in. I mean, I'm shocked to be.
You bring
admonished.
melons on this. Would you do this if Bob Baffert was on the
Absolutely. I used to bring these
on the radio show?
when I had the barbecue. I used to bring them for Zito's. I used to bring melons for Zito. Absolutely.
The Baffert? You give.
I would if I would bring Baffert a melon.
I want to see next week when you got Todd on. I want you to give him a melon.
A melon? All right, we can do that. We used to have those yellow flesh watermelons. Did you have those?
Yellow watermelon?
The yellow flesh watermelon, about that size, a little bit bigger.
No.
Oh, you don't know.
All right, we got to wrap it up.
No, we don't. People are hanging on to every word.
We are rooting for you guys, though. Again, to bring the check. You brought the Boston Spa, but we're rooting. Obviously, hometown hero.
It's
You're
time
out of
for
town
Duke to
now.
win.
but
Let Duke win one.
yeah.
He's been close every year. I mean, he
know,
makes the finals every year.
It's getting frustrating. I've been ever since they went to the cut thing. I've been in the finals every year, and I've only made the final table. Was it once?
Yeah.
That
once.
time with you.
But yeah. I just missed the other 2 years. So
And this year I really blew it. Though I wouldn't have won because I think that last race you mentioned would have cost me winning. But I should have made the finals and then I won the consolation.
Oh, yeah, the
second
next.
day.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
right.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah.
That's right.
So I beat everybody in the second day, and I was like $2 away from making the cut. So I did really good.
Oh, that's frustrating. Yeah. But that's part of horse racing.
Yes,
it
it
shows
is.
that even at the highest level,
Yeah.
it happens to all of us.
Yeah.
Matisse Brothers, Paul and Duke, we appreciate the visit, as always.
Thank you.
It's
Thank
one
you.
of the highlights of the Loose on the Lead year. Steve Bick, Seth Merrill, Loose on the Lead every Sunday morning. We're halfway through. We will continue next weekend, Sunday morning at 10 a.m. Enjoy the races this afternoon. Speaking of contests, once again, low roller today over there. It's fun. $40, 10 in prize pool, 30 you play with during the day. You keep whatever's on your card, and if you win, you get a nice cut of that prize pool. I think they pay down to 5 places typically if they get over 150, which they have been doing the past few weeks. So keep that in mind for this afternoon on the front side. Otherwise, cash some tickets. We'll see you again next week. Good morning and welcome to Loose on the Lead, live from the Saratoga backstretch on this Sunday morning. Seth Merrow and Steve Bick, and sitting in between, Lenny Schulman. And happy to have you back, Lenny. We touted you as being on Friday, and nobody got to see you as there were technical difficulties, but I said, come back.
I have learned a lot in the last 48 hours, Seth. It's a good thing we put it off till today.
Yeah, very good.
What have you learned?
Acquired a lot of knowledge. Eating jambalaya causes indigestion. That's one thing I learned yesterday.
You were down at the Guillot jambalaya?
That is some good eating. The brothers Guillot, Chip and Eric hosted their annual eating fest at 10 in the morning, which is a very odd time to be drinking beer and eating jambalaya. But it was fantastic. Those guys do a great job.
Yeah, we got in the cart and went down ourselves and enjoyed a little jambalaya. It was, and I think we've scheduled, we have to confirm it, but Dale Romans was down there too, so we may have a Dale-Eric duo in here on Wednesday morning.
You know, as a sidebar, you went to the Jambalaya Fest and you didn't tweet
I debated,
a picture?
But I have always said I'm off as soon as I tweet my lunch.
That's different. That's a very different scenario.
I wondered about that. Because it's more of an event lunch, so I maybe could have gotten away with it.
Well, you got to show the first graphic. We got some terrific imagery today, and you got to show the phenomena on the internet. It's a store. Oh, hey now, look at that, Seth Merrow. Didn't crop the photograph I gave him, but that's all right. 574 followers. This was a sensation.
It was 500 within the first 36 hours. So we blew up the internet a little bit, and they've all enjoyed my first 5 tweets. So it's.
Did you tweet it from the Jambalaya Fest or not?
No,
He didn't. He obviously from where? From Ciro's? Yeah, from Ciro's, a cockeyed drunk photograph. You can expect a lot of those from Seth in the future. People are debating. Yeah, look at that.
Can you lose followers? Can
please.
Because it's down to 330 now. It's dropping like
Exactly. Just wait.
it's like my stock.
Are you going to follow anyone, or are you going to be one of those elitists that only allow followers?
I'm still
you don't
getting
want to follow
the etiquette
anybody.
down, but on Tuesday I'll kind of go through. I want to pick. You don't follow
you want a
everybody,
cherry
do you?
pick?
You know.
No, you don't. You're about 10%.
Okay.
I use 10% as a
10%
measuring
rule.
stick.
Yeah,
as a measuring stick.
I wanted to, go through and make a good decision. So I'm waiting for the day off.
All right. You don't strike me as the type that will buy followers.
Oh no! I'm not a buy follower person.
No.
Robo.
You might sell a few followers if you build up enough of an inventory. Seth might sell.
But over on the front side, I've had a dozen people. I'm following on Twitter, so it's. What was
So
I
do
waiting
something.
For? What was I waiting for?
It's the cockamamie thing from Ciro's. Do something. Sure.
I made a couple of crappy picks yesterday, so that.
There you go.
Well, and you're not exactly.
Pressure.
You're not hardly a.
I don't try to do
social.
that. When I get a follower, I think to myself, "Oh, are you going to be disappointed, buddy?" Because it's once a year. I think, "Oh yeah, that might be something I could tweet." I'm just not geared to it.
Well, but you send off one-liners to Dice.
Well, that's true. No, I'm mastering email now, so I'm getting there.
Among many things that you've mastered.
So no, I don't do a lot of tweeting, but I try to let my writing speak for itself.
Well, for those of you that aren't aware, Lenny actually writes about the sport in Blood Horse. if you're one of
Well, you're not aware because you don't get the subscription, I'm sure. So
who wants to subscribe?
yeah,
It's on the internet.
Who
for free.
wants to read about Steve Bick in the magazine?
I would have read that. Why don't you? Oh, wait a minute.
Blood Horse, but the Dice reference, the Hollywood writing as well over the years.
Yeah, well, Steve and I were driving to dinner in Los Angeles. We had a three-way with Dice on the way over there. So Steve can speak to that. Three-way, I said.
I was taking Lenny to the Del Rey in Pico Rivera, which is my favorite joint.
Fantastic restaurant.
And he goes to call Dice, who he's been writing for and has been friends with for decades. And he puts him on the speaker. And so now I'm basically listening to Lenny and Andrew Dice Clay. And if you think that it's an act, if you think what you've gotten over the years from Dice Clay is some sort of a put on during when the cameras are on? The answer is no. The answer is the same shtick, live and just talking and jibing with Lenny. I threw my phone out. I've got it. I can play part of it.
So it's almost as entertaining as the Guillot phone call to Randy Romero.
That's one of the funniest things in the history of the sport.
Yes.
But no, it's one of my. That was a great moment.
Yeah, it was. It was a fun night. It was a fun night. So yeah. Anyway, from failing in Hollywood to failing as a turf rider, I've done it all.
Let's talk a little horse racing and
why
again you write for the Blood Horse, but let's get some of your opinions on what one of the stories of the year. Obviously, we have the stretch run to the Belmont. Justify wins the Belmont, subsequently retired, and so now the class is kind of trying to define itself underneath. We have the Travers coming up next Saturday. So just your feelings about Justify and his performance in the Triple Crown, and now how subsequently the 3-year-old class is kind of playing out.
Yeah, well, to answer your first question, and I know his career is always going to be defined by brevity as well as brilliance at this point. I think Justify is one of the absolute greatest racehorses I've ever seen. And I understand people are going to say 6 races. This horse is special. He was special in all 6 of his races. Looking at him, you could tell this was an animal that has something going on beyond his talent as a runner. This horse had it mentally, he had it physically, he had it in his heart, he had it as a warrior. I think this horse is one of the all-time great racers, and I'll tell you who else thinks so, is Bob Baffert, who, when he's not in front of the microphones and not in front of the cameras, has told people this horse was better than American Pharoah was, and I absolutely agree. I think he's a far superior horse to American Pharoah.
And I can speak to the opportunity Lenny had before everything really commenced, other than the maiden win. And as I've mentioned a number of times, I just so happened I had back-to-back trips to Los Angeles, to Santa Anita for Big Cap Week and for Santa Anita Derby Week. Lenny was out there for Big Cap Week as well, and he was going to do a feature on Baffert,
on you
and on me.
Baffert.
And Baffert took him to the barn and said, "You want to see the Derby winner?" And of course, the assumption was at the moment McKinsey might be that, but it wasn't. And he brought Lenny to see Justify, and the fact that I was there for the second start, which was Sunday after Big Cap Day, and then was there for the Santa Anita Derby, and then for the Triple Crown. Got to see 5 of his 6 career starts, and I'm in the same camp, and I was mystified through the Triple Crown, and you and I talked about this extensively, Seth. The minimalization, the eagerness to take the brief career and somehow compartmentalize it to say that as a result he can't be an all-time great and he can't be considered among the elite, and it's not fair. I mean, obviously you got to speculate what might have been, but these 6 starts in what essentially was what came every 18 on the average of 18 every 18 days is really unheard of in this era, and that alone makes him special.
Yeah, think about the time frame in which he accomplished what he accomplished, and I get it. I get why people want to see longevity and they want to see racing against older horses and a 4-year-old. I get all that. You cannot take away anything that this horse did in those 111 days. You just can't. And I'll confess something here. Because of my early union with Baffert and that horse, I always felt something special with that horse, and I've signed with a literary agent to shop a book that I'm proposing on Justify.
Oh, tremendous!
So I am kind of prejudiced about this, but I've written 3 chapters. I've written a 50-page proposal. I've done a lot of work on this, and it's a real agent, and I'm just knocking on wood that they find the publisher interested in it, because it's a story that it's not Seabiscuit, but in a way it's a modern-day Seabiscuit, because you have communist Chinese and born again Christians and the George Soros angle and the Saul Kuhlman angle and the Jack Wolf angle and the Bob Baffert and the Mike Smith and the John Gunn. It's really
got
a
everything.
phenomenal story. Plus Humberto Gomez and what he went through with the death of his father, and he chose to stay with the horse through the Triple Crown. It's a wonderful story with a lot of different elements, and I'm really hoping I get the chance to tell it.
Excited for you and excited for readers. It'd be refreshing, actually, to have a book about the Triple Crown winner from somebody that likes racing.
And with quotes from participants in it.
Yeah,
you know,
that the participants might actually talk to. Nobody will have to be tricked into talking to you. That's the best part.
So I've been kind of living with Justify a lot lately, and
well, you've got a lot to justify, frankly.
That's right. That's right. So,
I love it. That's great, Len.
Yeah,
that is
yeah.
good.
But to get to your other parts, before the Derby, this was the deepest field of 3-year-olds in
Yeah, and then it was
recent
the
memory.
world's worst.
And man, they just started dropping and dropping and dropping. But I've always felt this. I've always felt that Good Magic is the second best 3-year-old in this crop, and thank goodness he's still around. And I think we're going to see something special in the Travers, and I think he's a special horse.
Bob Edwards is going to join us actually in a little bit. We'll talk to Bob about yesterday Rushing Falls win, and he was delighted with that, obviously, and in the Lake Placid, and salvages one of the 2 3-year-old stakes. On the grass. They were lucky to salvage a grass race at all yesterday.
Yeah.
And obviously he's got Good Magic coming up on Saturday in the Travers. So Bob Edwards, E5 Racing, another one of the good stories that's emerged over the last 3 years.
I mean, everybody goes up to Bob now and says, God, you're lucky, God. And it's true. To win a Breeders' Cup race in your first year, come back and win 2 Breeders' Cup races in your second year, plus all these other fantastic races that he's won now, the Haskell and everything out of the Bluegrass with Good Magic. What a phenomenal. And going into the Derby, God, were they high on that horse. They were just
good reason.
giddy.
With good reason.
Chad and Bob and Barbara Banke and John Moynihan, and these people have seen a lot of good horses, and John Moynihan knows his stuff. And they were giddy. They were floating this far off the floor. Every day that horse came back from the track, and John Moynihan just remember coming up to me, what do you think? This is great. What do you think? I said, well, there's a pretty good horse over in barn 33. And the color kind of drained off of his face, and I was like, oh my God. I said, well, if you two were coming down the stretch together, that would be pretty good, wouldn't it? And son of a gun, it pretty much happened that way. But I think Good Magic is absolutely the next best, and we're going to see him.
Let's, in fact, on a quick note, let's a review of where we stand right now. Looks like 10. We keep hearing, and Mendelssohn, the latest addition to the
Travers.
Oh yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Where you been? Your
am
little
slight
jambalaya. Jesus, what is wrong with you? Good Magic, Mendelssohn, Catholic Boy, Wonder Gadot. So right there, you've got 4 intrigue storylines. By the way, speaking of Wonder Gadot, she didn't need to show up at Woodbine yesterday. Mark Cassie wins a Triple Crown anyway because Nipawa wins the Breeders. So Cassie sweeps the Canadian Triple Crown for the first time in his career. Gronkowski, of course, another intriguing storyline. Tenfold, Vino Rosso, Hofberg, Bravazzo, and King Zachary. That's a very nice field of 10 with a lot of fun stories.
That's even a better field than the Jim Dandy. Oh!
Speaking of dice. Oh! Are you getting a lot of that on that phone call?
A
little bit.
No, there wasn't a lot of that. But that, I think you said the right word. Very intriguing. I mean, 7 of those horses have major exclamations or question marks. Hofberg, certainly everybody's waiting to see, if he can put it together. Gronkowski, after the Belmont, coming back from that. Of course, the filly. Catholic Boy, is he a dirt horse? Is he a turf? Can he do it both? Can he do it all?
Right.
Mendelssohn, can he do anything at this point? And Good Magic, who, it's looking at the ahead to the Breeders' Cup Classic. You have to figure there's a lot of intrigue there also with the John Sadler horses and what they can and can't do. good magic stepping up against them. It's very interesting.
On that topic, do we want to look at that? Did we
Sure.
Did we throw the Pacific Classic in?
Yep.
A couple of stories from yesterday, including that Breeders, the Canadian Triple Crown season ends. But last night, if you didn't see Accelerate, watch the Pacific Classic here, and he absolutely sits comfortably and then explodes without any ask. Joel Rosario, in the absence of Victor Espinoza, Ron Anderson, Johnny on the spot, you didn't even get a chance to see Accelerate sitting and just basically waiting for his cue. And I don't even think he got cued by Rosario. He basically just took him to the lead, and now gets shaken up, and that's it.
Here.
That goodbye.
Chart margin at 12 is a 2-5 favorite in there. Pavel runs second. Prime Attraction runs third. Dr. Door runs fifth in the field of 7, but yeah.
And by the way, don't look. This is winning by a pole, but don't sleep on Pavel, who is a nice horse and who ran very well at Churchill Downs in the Clark. So he gets to go back for the Breeders' Cup Classic. I'm sorry, Stephen Foster.
115 buyer, by the way, career best for Accelerate.
Now, I hate to say this, but John Sadler, who's a wonderful trainer out in California, has had a passel of fine horses out there, has not been successful outside of California, and has not been successful in the Breeders' Cup, quite honestly. Has Catalina Cruiser maybe coming here for the Woodward? That'll be an indication of winning outside the state, certainly. But, you can't give away anything to anybody here. Everybody's got a little bit of a question mark to go with the exclamation mark. So, and it looked like, I hadn't seen this race before, it looked like Accelerated. He looked like he was looking over to his right coming down the stretch there a little bit. The way he threw his head there, I don't know. Could be nothing. Could be something.
We'll talk to Sadler tomorrow on radio, and
what a performance! But it's the Classic, much like the Travers, a lot of intrigue and a lot of question marks. But
the older division is as up in the air as the 3-year-old division is now with Justify on the sidelines.
Right. I don't know how do you guys sold on Diversify going forward, or
certainly Diversify, and I think Mind Your Biscuits. I think they're going to stick with 2 turns for at least another start and see if maybe the Breeders' Cup Classic is sitting out there. They both looked good the other day, and Diversify had it all its own way. That's the key. Yeah.
With him and Accelerate, that's nobody's going to have it their own way quite as easily.
Well, but I tell you, but watching Accelerate yesterday, he is not a demand the lead type, and frankly, Diversify is getting a little bit easier to sit with in the early stages. So that part of it, it's nice actually to have 2 kind of maturing, homegrown talents as at this age. It's a rarity actually, and I'm not going to compare it to the way, what was it, Bernardini Lava Man they were trying. Remember when they tried to make the East Coast West Coast confrontation between the 2 of them? Yeah. But it is a good starting point as we build, and then let's get through the Travers and the Pennsylvania Derby, and then you'll have the 3-year-olds. They're going to turn around and compete, of course, the Jockey Club Gold Cup, and you did hear. I'm not sure what you've been hearing and what you haven't, but they're renaming the front runner out at Santa Anita to the American Pharaoh.
Are they?
Yes. If you haven't heard that.
Well, the front runner is such a traditional name. I'm kind of sorry to see it go, but and let's not sleep on Catalina Cruiser. Looked fantastic in the San Diego. I understand he wasn't beating much in there, but I'd be very anxious to see his next race and see what we've got.
Well, and of course, a year ago, Sadler and Cosnaronis used it as the launching point for Accelerate to kind of kick him off, and when he surprised Arrogate.
Yeah. Very good. I think what we're lacking in the 3-year-old division all of a sudden from the Derby to now. I was talking to Jack Wolf yesterday, who's a big fan of this show, by the way. And, he was saying, gee, we had Audible here. We had, he had a lot of horses that looked like they were going to go forward and blossom. And, God, they just So.
No, it's
It's
beyond
a horrible
justified,
sport
yeah.
that way when they're just here today and gone tomorrow. But
He was aboard. Wait a minute. They were aboard for the Triple Crown winner. What do you think? We're going to feel sorry for Jack now
no,
for
we're
the
not gonna
Starlight
say-
team
no.
after they rode the
Well,
Justified train?
I'm not saying you have to feel sorry, but Jack and Saul didn't have a piece of those breeding rights. They had racing
No,
rights.
they-
and
understood.
the fact that he went away early, hurt.
There's a chapter.
That
There's a
hurts
chapter.
them. Well, it's not a chapter, but it's a. I'm sure they were hoping to get a little more length out of that career. But no, when you win the Triple Crown, you do not.
You can't complain.
Get felt badly for.
Speaking of chapters, I saw where you had the graphic of Lenny's latest novel, and slap that up there as well. Lenny now has got two back-to-back terrific reads. If you aren't aware, you can pick them up at Amazon and similar.
Yes.
Similar. This
There
is
it is.
Points.
Yes. For those who like their basketball with their horse racing, we've got a good point shaving scandal, a mystery, a thriller, and some comedy in there. So available at Amazon. It's a good read. Actually got a hell of a notice in the New York Post a little while ago from Mike Vaccaro, fine sports writer at the New
Sure.
York Post.
He read it and loved it?
Gave a very positive review of Points.
When you order Points, also order Long Way Home.
Long way home, and follow me on Twitter. It'll be a fantastic. You'll do much better with the books than the Twitter.
The books are a series, though, right? You got a character.
Yeah, it is. It's a rampaging reporter who uncovers. The first book, Long Way Home, is about a scandal at the Kentucky Derby, and this one is a college basketball thing. So
You killed off the Haskin character, right?
the Haskin character does not make an appearance. I had to let it go by popular demand.
All right.
I shouldn't say it's a spectacular murder in the second book of the Haskin character.
Oh. All right. Well, we got to let you go. Not by popular demand.
Yes.
Popular demand is saying, bring Lenny back more and more. But
always
again,
have.
you can pick up the book at the various online booksellers. Points is the latest one. Just get. I mean,
I'm going to follow him on Twitter now. For that.
Exactly.
It's fairly. It came out at the beginning of the summer, right? It's fairly recent.
It came out actually it coincided with the Final Four.
Final Four.
Oh, okay. There you go. Yeah.
And with, frankly, all the scandals happening in college basketball this year, it was a good
right.
time for it to come out.
PR worked out.
Yeah.
very well.
I had it all going for me.
All right, Lenny, appreciate the visit, and again, check out the book. We will take a break. We'll come back. Harold Lerner is in the house right now, and we'll talk to him and much, much more on the show today. Sean Clancy a little bit later on. Stay tuned. Loose on the Lead continues. Welcome back to Loose on the Lead. Seth Merrill and Steve Bick live from Saratoga. Backstretch, beautiful morning here. Should be a great racing day, and it was a great racing day yesterday. Man of the hour, Jonathan Thomas, trainer at Catholic Boy. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
How was the evening? How was dinner in the evening last night?
You know, believe it or not, I was in bed by 9:45, and I had a dinner through a drive-through last night. It was pretty low-key, but, we celebrated back at the barn with all the right people, and right before we left, Javier was the last guy to show up. Spent about 10 minutes in the stall with Catholic Boy, petting on him, and kind of gave us the replay of the race. And honestly, I don't think that we could have had a better experience than back there with him.
That's nice. So if you win the Super Bowl, you're going to Disney World. If you win the Travers, you're going to Burger King. Is that how it works?
Well, when I worked for Todd, I remember Super Saver, his post-race dinner was pizza with his family. So, listen, we're happy to be a part of these things, and we can celebrate with our own.
Yeah, we're happy to have you on at the beginning of the meet. We're certainly happy to have you on this afternoon, or this morning, going back to yesterday afternoon, the nice win in the Travers. Just talk about overall. You could tell just from what you said so far, but overall, what was the experience like?
I mean, I'm not going to lie, it was really surreal. We were taking a horse over that we had a lot of confidence in, and to see him deliver and really see everything play out perfect. It's such a rare thing to have happen in horse racing, but from the time we saddled up and he looked the part in the paddock, he left the pony and warmed up stellar. I had a lot of confidence in how he was getting over the racetrack. And then Javier, what can I say about his ride? It was a balance of authoritative but like balanced authority. He took the race by the scruff of the neck and sat. He just looked like a tiger ready to pounce the entire time. And when they threw up the fractions, I just, it was weird to feel that good. I was just waiting for it to get polished off, but it really was like everything went perfect.
Yeah.
Can we watch? Should we roll the tape and are we going to watch the whole thing? We have the whole tape.
Yeah, I believe we do have the whole thing.
How much concern of the things that were being talked about? First and foremost was the turf conversion, number one, and then you draw the 11 hole. What were the thoughts from that standpoint? And take us around.
Well, starting from the turf to dirt conversion, I mean, his body of work on the dirt up to this point, it was light in the sense that we hadn't run him a whole lot on it, but what he had done gave us the confidence to try it. His Remsen effort was good, or very good. The Sam Davis, numerically it was very strong. In the Florida Derby, we kind of drew a line through that race. Most importantly, it trained on this particular track extremely well in his breezes. The 11 hole, I actually loved it because we had an opportunity to keep his face clean and to break and allow the pace to develop inside of us. And Javier did just an extremely good job of getting a great position going into the first turn. And here, when they threw up this 23-2, I just thought there is no excuse from here. Literally, if we have the horse, if Javier has the horse underneath of him, it was just a matter of executing. This is the most painful time because you're just sitting here until it's time to throw down.
What are you watching at this point? Are you watching for somebody to come get you guys, or are you focused totally on Mendelssohn and where you're standing?
At this point, a horse race, I pay a lot of attention to the rider and his body language. I mean, at this point, Javier has never moved, and it's kind of like a poker game. Who throws their cards in last? And at this point in time, Javier has not thrown a card down. He's kind of just seeing what he has underneath of him. But I thought as the race would develop, distance-wise, we were always going to get stronger.
You could tell as they went into the turn, everybody else is asking, and Ryan Moore and Javi are just riding.
Yeah, I mean, by the time we turn in here, it's just a matter of polishing the race off. But there was no, not to jump the gun, but at this point, I knew it was going to be over.
And I heard you, of course, in the press conference afterward, you did express some surprise at how dominant at this point this turns out to be.
Yeah,
it's a rout now.
These are good horses. These are good horses with top international and national connections. I mean, you've got Aiden O'Brien, Chad Brown, Todd Pletcher, D. Wayne Lucas. I mean, these are all guys that I look up to on a daily basis, and to be competitive in this kind of an arena with this kind of horse and have things go the way they have, it's a dream come true.
Sixth Travers for Javier Castellano, who is this actually, I thought of this, in fact, late last night, that it's become a little unusual now with him. It's becoming almost Pat Day-esque in terms of him racking up wins in race like this, the way Pat did in Preaknesses without a Derby, and then eventually Day got his Derby, and Javier will get his, and so forth. But it's amazing in this age, in this era, for a guy to win 6 Travers, and he's mid-career.
No, I'd agree. I mean, we're just getting into the arena where we have horses good enough to call on a guy like Javier. We're not going to inundate him with horses we don't believe in, but the relationships that has developed in a short amount of time, I can't tell you how much a fan I've become of his just from his preparation. He's got a great horsemanship on top of his riding skills, and he comes so prepared, but he makes everything look so easy. I mean, that ride, it just looked like we were going through the motions. I mean, he's just a super talent. He's obviously a Hall of Famer that's got a lot of career ahead of him. If you could get inducted twice, maybe he's a candidate. But listen, we're just thrilled with what he's done for our team.
To the horse for a minute, and then we'll talk, and part of it, your horsemanship as well, and your career arc. And you showed a video to Sean Clancy yesterday, and I asked you to forward it to us, and you got to see this. Because if you want to have confidence about observing a horse going into race day, when you see a horse behaving like this in the round pen, you must have been very confident.
Yeah, it's like a little addition to what we do. I mean, we bring it kind of from home, but I love getting my horses out after they train, they get to roll and play and kind of crack their backs, and they're like any of us. We need space, and they get kind of uninterrupted time away from people and just get to be a horse for a little bit and get dirty before they get a bath. But every day they'll kind of tell you something different with their body language, and I love seeing horses get up and buck and squeal and play, and it's indicative of them just feeling good. And this is him yesterday morning, about 10 o'clock, on race day, and he just really enjoys himself. And part of our job, it's not only to train them, physically, but mentally. I like to keep our horses happy. It's a really important thing for me.
Well, the horse is happy. The groom is not happy. When they start pawing at the ground, usually after a bath, and all of a sudden they start to paw and they're going to roll.
This is before bath. This is before bath.
So, they'll do it. They'll do it. A lot of times, you'll give them a bath, and the groom's like, no.
Believe me, this groom is not complaining about anything right now.
Jonathan, for you, I mean, to deal with the adversity and the curveballs that were thrown from the winter into the spring, and having to kind of reboot the season. You talk about calling on your horsemanship.
Well, we've always not let a race be more important than the horse. Don't get me wrong. I love the thought of the Derby and the Derby, but I think it has too much clout, and I think some horses are kind of pigeonholed to get there at their expense. And the one thing, and it might cost me people down the road, but I'm never going to put the horse before the race ever, including the Derby. And when we knew we couldn't get there the right way and put this horse and showcase him in the right way, we came up with a game plan. All the owners were on board, and Mr. LaPenta has been such a patient guy in letting us develop this horse, and it's nice to see putting the horse first pay off, because without them we're all just up here talking about nothing. So that as a horseman, it means a lot to me, but you can't do it without the backing of your clients and them understanding. And obviously he responded the right way to taking care of him.
I want to go back, talking about the break you had to take after the Florida Derby and regroup and come back in the Pennine Ridge, followed up with a win in the Belmont Derby, a grade 1 at 1.25 miles on the turf, now a grade 1 at 1.25 miles on the dirt. But I wanted to go back to that regroup race, because that was just a freakish performance. We're going to watch the stretch run to the Pennine Ridge. And for folks who don't remember, at this point, Analyze It is kind of considered a potential superstar on the turf. Analyze It's going to be the number 4. Go by. It looks like the race is over. Number 3, Catholic Boy, though, comes back, as I said, in just what was a freakishly good performance. So after the bleeding incident in the Florida Derby, you had to be thrilled with this.
Oh, this was great. He had trained really well up to this, and we were kind of bringing him in 90%, 85% from a fitness standpoint, really targeting the Belmont Derby. And listen, Analyze It is a very good horse, and we had a lot of respect going into the race, and I hate to ever concede defeat, and settle for second place, but we actually were kind of thinking that going in. So listen, that last eighth of a mile, I just turned into a fan. I was screaming and grabbing everyone near me, and we were just, you don't expect efforts like that, so it's it was a real thrill.
Coming out of that and the Belmont Derby, I saw a note from Andy Serling, brought up a great point that don't know if and when we'll see a Belmont Derby Travers double again. You bring up Bob LaPenta, who of course has had any number of successes in the game, and you were very quick yesterday during the press conference to acknowledge what his confidence in you has meant. And I'd love for you to talk a little bit, Jonathan, because through this whole journey, I've had you on the show. You've talked with me on the radio many times. Starting with you're going out on your own, then tying in with Bridlewood, and then the opportunity that afforded you to meet other people. Some you already knew, some you got reacquainted with, and then build your training career. And talk a little bit about how that has all come to pass and how satisfying it is, the path you ended up taking.
No, I mean, it's completely unorthodox, and it's not something we wrote up on paper, but I always felt like a weak point in me was the actual recruiting of horses and learning about young horses as athletes and trying to get your hands on them, because really it's a recruiting business, and getting the best athlete is going to afford you the best opportunity to succeed. So, I took a step back, went to Ocala, and started to frequent the horse sales, and lucky I got to spend time with Todd and his father, JJ, who are exceptional at purchasing young horses, and try to employ the recruiting and development aspect of it. And as it started to work, some owners came forward about keeping a couple horses and trying it out, and took a small gamble on us. Aaron Wellman being, listen, we wouldn't have gotten the shot without him, because he really was the first guy to say, hey, you've got this great place. You have a couple, I've got some horses that'll fit your program, and let's try it. And I said, if you're willing to try it with us, we'll give it a shot. But, we've got a great facility. Catholic Boy, 90% of his training is actually taking place at Bridlewood Farm, the preparation. And it's the beauty of having a training facility, but a spa atmosphere where you can let them be horses a small part of the time. So it satisfies me as a horseman, because I feel like we're getting to cover a lot of bases. But, as time has gone on, we've just met stronger and stronger people and employed better teammates and getting our hands on better quality horses. So I'd like that to be my hub, develop, and if the good ones, we'll bring them to the racetrack and hopefully execute.
Well, and you get, because of your positioning there, you actually are in a more advantageous position to utilize various aspects of the business. I mean, in terms of pin hooking and into 2-year-old and training sales, and then going on with some of the horses that might not, fetch the reserve, which is something that Bob LaPenta, that's how Bob LaPenta and Nick Zito built their successes, were on the ones that came home.
No, for sure. And I think you have to be careful of pigeonholing yourself in this business, because, if you look at it from a stock portfolio, diversification is really, there's a lot of safety in it, and everything communicates to the next thing. Young horse becomes a racehorse becomes a stallion or a broodmare, and it all cycles back on itself. And if I have true heroes in this business, I've always been a huge fan of John Nehrude and Jim Bulger, and the fact that they excelled at every facet of the horse business. Now, I never think about replicating their sort of careers, but I love all the aspects, and I think I get as much enjoyment about having purchased Catholic Boy as a baby as I have trained him, but it's been to be part of the whole package satisfies me as a horseman. But then on the flip side, just in the last week, we broke newspaper record for Chad, who's a good friend of mine, and that felt very good. And we broke Axelman for Michael McCarthy, and he won the Smarty Jones.
Yes.
So even I love still seeing that we're doing what we set out to do, and that's do the best for the horse and the client. And if it means me, that's great. And if it means where they're, other trainers,
sure,
specifically Todd, Michael McCarthy, and Chad, who have become our core group, that's very satisfying. There's a lot of satisfaction that comes from that too.
Well, of course, now you gotta win something for the little general. For Aaron.
We're gonna try.
Let's talk about this afternoon. As Steve said before we went to the break, there's nothing like the Travers Smart and Fancy double. So we'll see if we can do that this weekend. And you have a nice horse in there. I'm going to pull up the race from Belmont, June 1st. The number 2 will be Tilly's Lily. This was win number 4 in start number 4. Nice turf sprinter, steps into Stakes Company this afternoon in the Smart and Fancy. What are your thoughts on Tilly's Lily?
This filly we struggled with as a 2-year-old. She had a couple of slight physical issues that we needed to let her grow out of, and we debuted her last summer, and she just trained gangbusters. I mean, she's a super fast filly, very forward, no quirks at all. We were able to get a couple good races out of her last year, and then we put her away for the winter, kind of hoping to bring her up here to Saratoga and showcase her. And this was her comeback race, and we were very happy with the result. We had her in the Caress, and she spiked a little fever, and it rained, and it rained enough where scratching her made it a little bit more palatable between those two things. And subsequently she's been training well. I think she's going to show up today. I don't have her fully cranked, but if she's as good as I hope she is or think she is, I definitely see her being in the mix today and platforming into another stake out of this.
Yeah, I see the career debut was a win on the dirt and an off the turf event. So maybe next year the ballerina.
Because it's the same thing here. We're getting into a management aspect of a horse where she has enough pedigree, she has enough credentials. My job now is to hopefully create some residual value for her. She's a distorted humor filly out of an Empire Maker mare that's a half sister to Monarchos. I bought her for $200 as a yearling. She's probably worth about $6 now as it stands, and if we can get her to win a stake race, the sky's the limit. The distorted humor fillies right now that are stakes winners are probably the most sought after broodmare prospects in this country. So, for our owners, we hope we can capitalize on that at some stage.
This afternoon.
Hopefully today.
Smart and fancy.
Yeah.
All right, Jonathan Thomas, appreciate the visit. Certainly, congratulations on the great run with Catholic Boy, including that Travers yesterday, obviously. And you said at the press conference, I have to ask you, though, you said nothing certain, but you have any game plan next for Catholic Boy?
I mean, tentatively that Jockey Club Gold Cup Hill Prince weekend kind of makes sense. I'm not so sure I wouldn't use the Hill Prince as a platform or prep into the Classic, if that's what everybody kind of agrees to. But I certainly have no issue putting this horse back on the turf. It's a nice, kind surface. There's no reason to try to tackle Diversify on his home track. Especially horses that run on the lead as fast as they do, you can get in a lot of trouble chasing them, and you can run your eyeballs out and come out worse for the effort.
Absolutely.
If that was our lone goal, well, then you tackle it. But if our big target, the next target is the Classic, then we need to find a good platform, and the platform might just be training up to it. So, which he's run really well fresh, so we have confidence in that. But that weekend's got a big circle around it.
Well, we appreciate the visit, and again, congratulations. Good luck going forward.
Thanks, guys, and appreciate all you all do. Thank you.
Very good.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate the visit.
Brilliant. Winchell mare Fleet Renee. Basalt goes in quietly. Pleasant closing to the far side. They're all set. Back to you, Marv. And away they go. All right, they're off to a beautiful beginning, and it's PhD and Basalt going for the lead. Spartan comes through on the inside, and Z Rockstar is fourth. Rumors About Me is racing in fifth through these opening furlongs, followed by Pummykins, who is on the inside of Easton Jack and Pleasant Closing. Marv Albert, Rodney Dangerfield, D. Wayne Lucas, Robert De Niro, and Trevor Denman at beautiful Oaklawn Park. Let's go to Rodney as they go to the backstretch. Oh, I tell you, I got no respect at all. First race I call here, Basalt wouldn't go in the gate. Yeah, and he's battling for the lead. I'll tell you, they're head and head up top. It's Basalt on the inside and PhD. Are you kidding? The only degree I ever got was an MD. Money destroyer. Spartan coming through on the inside, and then it's Z Rockstar fourth. Then Pleasant Closing fifth, about 4 off the lead. He's followed by Rumors About Me. I'll tell you, there's rumors. And unfortunately, they're all true. Then it's Pummykins and Easton Jack. Let's go to D. Wayne Lucas. Well, I thought this thing was going to get serious. I don't know that we approve these particular voices, and I'm tired of the questions about the Eclipse Awards. We've got more Eclipse Awards than we can count, and I just want to pay attention to the race. And I'll tell you, Optimizer will be double tough. As far as I'm concerned, this one's wide open, and I think PhD is going to be tough, and he's now battling for the lead. Basalt, when you wash out at the gate, that's going to be tough. And Z Rockstar, now that's a horse that I can pay attention to. I thought it's going to be serious for him. No. This came from management, D. Wayne. Don't give us a hard time. Just watch the race. They home it down in the short stretch of this mile run. PhD, Z Rockstar. What a horse race this one is. Z Rockstar, PhD. PhD, Z Rockstar, PhD. And nose to Z Rockstar. Then came Pleasant Closing. Close for fourth. Rumors About Me. Basalt, Easton Jack, Pummykins, and then it was Spartan who ran last. What a horse race that one was. PhD and Z Rockstar. It brought back memories of Sunday silence and easy go right here at Oaklawn. Let's go right back to the studio.
Good morning and welcome to Racing Across America on a Monday morning. You just heard him, the inimitable Frank Miramati, one of his classic calls from Oaklawn Park. And look, he joins us this morning. Frank, good morning.
It's a pleasure to be here. As you know, I've been a longtime fan of yours.
I appreciate
I was
that.
one of your first log-on people for Equidaily. I've always enjoyed that site.
Appreciate it, and we've been a big fan of yours. And again, one of the fun calls with you nailed Marv, you nailed Rodney. Good job there.
That was fun.
Yeah.
That was fun. Oaklawn was a place that they wanted me to be serious, and then at the end of opening weekend of my first season, 2012, they said, "Let's do this." They never asked me to do it again. After they heard that, they said that was plenty.
That was good, though. Very good, very funny. Let's before we get into Saratoga, and you're in town not only to enjoy the races, but you're doing the MSG Fox show this afternoon and Wednesday too.
Yes, very excited about that. I was called out of the bullpen, a late call up. They said bring in the big righty, and we're going to have some fun on the show today and on Wednesday as well. Certainly looking forward to it. Had a lot of fun last year in my appearances on here, and you got to be prepared. This is Saratoga, the greatest racing in the world, so it's a tremendous honor.
I'm looking forward to it. I obviously I'm here at the track all day, but I try to catch the shows later on because they do the late night version as well. But when you guys left here, you did some down at Belmont last year.
Yes.
And I got a kick out of it. I had a smile because you and Andy, every once in a while there'd be one of those horses where it was like 180 degrees and you guys would butt heads. And I don't care what horse I bet in the race, I was watching to see which one of you guys got it done with the horse you would argue about.
We had a lot of fun on those shows, and Andy, one day after a show, I think it was July 3rd over at Belmont, he said to me, that was the most enjoyable show that he had done because we were battling, fiercely on a race. And it was almost fitting that in one of the big battles that we had, he ended up getting me by a nose in the last race. It was when Discretionary Mark made his debut, and I loved him, and he loved another horse that had run a few times, and he ended up beating me. And it was almost like, since I was the road team, I almost felt, okay, that's a perfect ending to the show in that the home team wins, but I made him sweat it out. We had a lot of fun, and we look forward to doing it again. Andy and I get along very well. We have a lot of laughs when we talk.
Yeah, we had him on Sunday morning, and look forward to having him on a couple more times before the meet ends. But again, it's always fun to watch you guys. So today and Wednesday, and then you said a couple times a little later in the month as well.
Yes, and I don't look at his picks until after I'm done with mine. I'm very pleased to say that we only agree on one race of the three that we covered today, so we should have some good battles going on.
Very good. Let's talk a little bit about, before we get to Saratoga this afternoon, and some thoughts here. Let's talk about the Monmouth meet so far. How are things going down on the shore?
Things are great, and a much-needed sigh of relief as sports betting was approved at Monmouth Park. Dennis Drazen, our chief executive officer, who's a big-time horseman and breeder, had a nice win here yesterday, as a matter of fact, was instrumental. That's an understatement. He fought hard for sports betting to be legalized, and it's really doing well. In fact, when I saw the numbers, I was surprised at how big the numbers really were for these sports bets, and this is during soccer and baseball. So when football comes, it's going to be astronomical. We've partnered with William Hill, and in horse racing, everyone talks about takeout and what's the best takeout. No question, William Hill offers the best lines in terms of baseball, like a 10-cent line as opposed to a 20-cent line. It's a big difference, and it's a great atmosphere. It's perfectly located, and the future is bright because this is going to help purses. It's going to help meet. And, this, as everyone knows, Monmouth Park has been surrounded by states that have alternative gaming, and it's been very tough for them to survive, and it's amazing that this management team has been able to do it. So this is something that's very exciting, and we've had a good meet. The runner-up the other day in the Schuylerville, Nona Madeline, made her debut over there. Nice maiden winner yesterday for Todd Pletcher, ran at Monmouth. We always get some good maiden stakes races, allowance races too, entry level. And I know that the optimism is extremely high for the future, and that's what it's all about, preserving racing on the Jersey Shore, and now having a chance to see it flourish where it belongs.
Yeah, I applaud you guys. It was the day or two after you opened the sports book. We had one of the VPs from Monmouth on with us when we were down in the studio, and the excitement was already clearly obvious with just the first couple of days. And that was really only maybe a week after the Supreme Court ruling, because you guys were first off the block, ready to roll, and I applaud you for that. And again, we're hoping here in New York things work out as well, because this will be a bonus for horse racing. And I said when I was talking with the Monmouth executive, I said, I think as opposed to casinos, which have helped horse racing in certain ways, I think sports betting has the potential, more potential as opposed to slots players. There's more potential for crossover from sports players.
A lot of sports players like action, and so therefore you see a horse race going on, you get involved. And we always have to wonder, what is this going to be? Because let's face it, the truth of the matter is the majority of the public would rather bet on sports than horse racing. We're not going to kid ourselves over here, right? But there is a lot of crossover, and that's why they have racing sports books throughout Las Vegas and such. And the good news for me is it's almost like I got a raise because I'm not allowed to bet sports at Monmouth Park, which is actually good news for yours truly. No ninth inning meltdowns necessary for the track announcer. It's good stuff.
All right, and again, before we move on, I just want to touch on also, because I pulled up a replay of the Kentucky Derby. We're going to watch Justify win, but Good Magic is going to run second. I want to touch on your really signature event coming up next Sunday, the Haskell down at Monmouth. And again, Justify is going to win. Good Magic is going to run second, though. Good Magic and Bravazzo pointing towards the Haskell. And I think, I'll see if you agree with me, you get past Justify, I think this division is searching for some definition. And the summer races, I think, have the chance to provide that.
There's no question. And Good Magic is a monster. He is the deserving favorite and should be an overwhelming favorite on Sunday in the Betfair.com Haskell. And he's last year's champion. I thought that vote was absolutely correct in giving him the championship. He proved it later. He just ran into a buzzsaw in Justify here, and Justify was just not going to be defeated. But he's fresh, he's ready, and I have to believe Good Magic will make a strong statement to begin the second half of the year here in the 3-year-old ranks. And look, as we get closer, we're starting to think toward Breeders' Cup Classic. Good Magic is an extremely legitimate contender for that, and one of the likely winners of the Breeders' Cup Classic.
Yeah, looking forward to the Haskell next Sunday down there, though, as I say, kind of sort things out, and then up here a little later to Travers as well, Pennsylvania Derby, because, as I say, you get past Justify, it's a little juggled up in that division. I'll ask you, I don't know if you may have been on the road yesterday. You get a chance to see the CCA Oaks and Monomoy girl? Wow.
I did. She's really good. I mean, she had the pace advantage, certainly, to go to the front, but she finished it up very well. You know, down deep in me, that West Coast Midnight Bisou, I had to root for her just because you think about West Coast connections. She started out there, and I've watched her, and she's a good filly. But let's face it, she was schooled yesterday, and Monomoy Girl is quite a girl.
Yeah, and I think he was a name that was kind of getting on people's radar to begin with, but certainly Monomoy Girl has put Brad Cox front and center really early in his career. He winds up with his first Grade 1 winner like 2 months ago, and now it's essentially, I think you can kind of put in the book, his first Eclipse winner as well.
He's an outstanding trainer, and he was training for Midwest Thoroughbreds for a while, so I became familiar with him when I was at Oaklawn, and I thought, this guy can train. And a couple of years back, Tommytown Thoroughbreds called me one day and asked me about trainers that you might recommend. I'm like, look, I don't know. These guys are all good. And I actually called our racing secretary, Pat Pope, which, by the way, is a tremendous addition to the NYRA team that he's going to be joining here. And I asked him about, I said, look, I don't want to tell this. You're the racing guy. And he gave me 3 names, and one of them was Brad Cox. They ended up sending him a filly, Tommytown did. And I know that, he has so many nice owners, so many nice horses. And at every level, he's tough in a $10,000 claimer. He's tough in a Grade 1. But there are no flukes. When a guy is winning like that at every single level, there's something to it. He's a fantastic horseman, and I'm very happy for him.
Absolutely. All right, let's jump in this afternoon and get some of your opinions. Again, you will be on the MSG Fox Sports program as well. I recommended people tune into that if you aren't coming up to the track. It should be a lot of fun, as I say. I enjoyed you and Andy when you were doing it last year, so looking forward to this afternoon as well.
I got to irritate him quickly. I just got to needle him a couple of times. We'll be good to go.
It's funny. I had Tommy Amos by phone a couple of months ago. I said, we're going to see you up in Saratoga doing the shows, right? He said, yeah, I got to come keep Andy in line. So that's always the game plan, I guess, up here. 4th race, though, at Saratoga. Again, they're off the turf, so this is an off-the-turf state-bred maiden special sprint. I had it 13-14, and then so I'm essentially staying with the MTOs. There were a couple in the body of the field that attracted my attention, but I will say the 2 MTOs are first-time starters, so there's some question marks there. Where did you go and race for?
It's funny that you mentioned the MTO, because Bourbon Mission, the reason that horse becomes even more interesting to me, and I didn't pick him on top, but he's a Mission Impassable, right? And so those are pretty decent turf horses, yet this horse was entered main track only, so I think that it's a strong statement for this one's ability. The horse that I picked is number 4, Dugout. Now, Tyler Gaffleone is named on 2. I don't know which was his top choice. I certainly hope he stays on Dugout, who should be a very, very fast son of Adios Charlie. Adios Charlie himself ran second in his debut. The mare has dropped 5 multiple winners, and Larry Ravelli, talk about there's certain trainers that can get horses to blast right out of the gate. Larry Ravelli is one of them. I would imagine that this horse, who was training at Arlington early and then comes over here, is extremely fast. And if that's the case, I like Dugout. I will be worried, however, if Gaffleone ends up on the 14 Woodbury, because certainly you don't always know the inside story on where the jockey was going and what the commitments were, etc. But I'm a big fan of Tyler Gaffalione. I think he has the potential, ready for this, to become the best jockey out there.
Oh.
That's how good I think he is. And he's young, but he's exceptional. You watch him in those races at Gulfstream Park, particularly on the turf. Every race, he's in the perfect spot. He gets himself ready to win. And I met him here for about 30 seconds. I said to him, I said, "You're the best, my friend. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." He's really good, and he seems like a good kid as well. I'm rooting for much success for him, but he has been phenomenal so far.
Down there at Gulfstream certainly has shown a lot of talent down there. So, all right, race number 4, the Ravelli horse. And after the MTOs, I may take a look at that one just on the Ravelli
A lot of
stats.
sprinting winners. I mean,
Yeah.
multiple winners, several of them.
I wasn't quite sure what to do with Ravelli coming in from Arlington.
Sure.
This was one where I wanted to see the scratches. Would he stay? Would he take out? Because they're training over the synthetic at Arlington, so they probably wanted the turf. But that he stayed in,
Good point.
got
That's a
to
good point.
put your trust in him, I think. All right, the feature today, that one stays on the turf, and thank goodness, because I have Loaded and Wow written at the top of the page. This is just a phenomenal race. I went 3, 11, 2, and 4. The 3 Triple Chelsea, it seems like it goes through that, but we did the handicapping show earlier, and I said, a couple of off-turf races weren't her best efforts. Brielle's Appeal, the first on the AE list, comes in off a soft turf course win at Keeneland. So that appealed to me. So I had 3, 11, 2, and 4. And I'm wondering, though, a West Coast guy with a Baffert horse in here, are you looking at Fabian?
I like Fabian. I mean, I don't like her in this race, but I certainly respect Fabian. I'll tell you what Fabian really schooled me long ago was against Selcourt back in the Angel Flight on May 14th, 2017. I can still feel that wound. When Selcourt was a very, very nice filly for John Sadler, unfortunately had nothing for Fabian in the late stages. She's good, and her turf debut was excellent. This is just a loaded field. I'm with you, too, Triple Chelsea. She's so good. And last time, I absolutely loved Morticia. I thought I was home at all times there, and she just came and picked her right up. And so, to me, it's difficult to not pick her, because it just seemed like she had her measured, even though she got her right on the money. It was like, how's Morticia going to beat this filly if she fires this mare? She's 5. But I have to go with her as well. And Brielle's Approval is a horse that I'm intrigued with as well, that you mentioned, because she's had an outstanding record thus far, and there's nothing to fault her. She's good. This is a very tough race. There's so many good horses in here. Nothing could surprise you.
You mentioned Tyler Gaffalione, Triple Chelsea, another up-and-comer as far as the jockey. Adam Biscuit's, he's one that I think people should keep their eyes on. Certainly this winter, he stepped out. And just before we move on, the 7th race is the feature. It's the Caress, and you and I were talking beforehand about Caress.
Yes, Caress was an outstanding filly. She wore those famous flamingo white bars on black sleeves and a black cap of the Harbor View Farm. She earned a lot of money. One of her wins, however, we should talk about. It was the Just a Game. It was a race that she was put up by a disqualification. It was a race won by Class Chris, and that was my first year of announcing races. Class Chris had won the Black Helen. She was a very, very talented filly for Jimmy Picou and Fred Hooper. But in the race of the Just a Game, Class Chris won by 5. But it was in the days when in New York it was a very strict. A foul is a foul. So did she foul? Did she foul Caress? Yes. Did it affect the 5-leg victory? No, but a rule was a rule. No. DQ City. But Caress, don't take anything away from her record, because she had many wins that she didn't need any assistance from. She was very, very nice. But we all talk now, and social media has taken the steward situation to a ridiculous level where everyone has become a steward, right? But back then, it was just a very cut and dry situation. You foul, you're out.
And that, to me, that was a great rules change to let them have their discretion. But that opens up a whole new can of worms as well. But that was definitely a good move, because there are certainly those races where you can look and say there was a foul, but it wasn't going to change the outcome of the race.
And then somehow, when your ticket is on that horse, you tend to be in that direction. You can't help it. Let's face it, it's human nature. Right?
All right, 9th and final today, State-Bred Maidens. Again, another off-the-turf event. I went 3, 12, and the 3 and the 12 in here. The 3 is in the body of the field, but has been on the dirt most of the time. The 12 is an MTO, so I kind of went a little bit logical in here. What did you see in the finale? Because you said you liked the horse.
I love this horse so much. I'm so glad Andy didn't pick this horse, because we're going to have some fun on the show. I absolutely love the 10, Mama Mary here. I would have liked her in either situation. But when I was looking at this card, actually, even though, of course, when you're covering turf racing, you want to see the races stay on the turf. From a wagering standpoint, I actually prefer seeing this race come off the turf because Mama Mary, who's a daughter of Bodemeister, I thought she ran well in her debut, first of all. She was in between horses, not the most comfortable of positions to be at first asking. Just not, I'm not saying it was a trouble trip. It just wasn't the ideal situation where she was placed, which is understandable that she ended up finishing third. Like, wasn't an amazing performance. Did you see anything out of there? No. But when you're uncomfortable early, she was subsequently scratched at the gate on June 29th, a race that some of these others came out of. But the thing about her that I absolutely love is that she has 7 winning siblings, including a couple of absolute mud freaks, one of which was Jessica is Back, who won 8 of 15 starts on the off-going. Another one named Super Danny, who won 3 of 6, and 2 other winning siblings in the mud. What more can you beg for than with moisture in the track, a horse who showed some promise? There are going to be some scratches out of this race, and ideally the connections are very familiar, and I'm sure they are with this family. This is my best bet of the day. Mama Mary, I think, will absolutely take to the mud or whatever the course is, as long as the main track has a little moisture in it, which it has to because it's raining now. I love Mama Mary today. This is the horse that I will make the statement.
All right, I like it. And Frank, before we let you go, I'll just let you mention, because your best all-time win at Saratoga is sitting off the set. You and I talked about it on the phone. I thought it was hilarious. Talk a little bit about...
Last year, I came to Saratoga for the first time in 19 years to do Saratoga Live. The first day I got here, one of my Twitter friends, Jennifer L., was here. I saw, in fact, when I pulled into the parking lot, I looked at my Twitter, and she put a little note, and I said, I really want to meet this girl, which was crazy because it's strange because she loves baseball, she loves horse racing, and her tweets made it seem like she's a very cool girl, and she's certainly a very pretty lady. So I said, I hope I meet this girl today. So I walk in, and then I look at where the TVs are in the trees, and I see there's like a million of them, so I'm not meeting her. I'm standing in front of with the group, with Paul LaDuca and a few of my friends, and Tony Alavato and all them. All of a sudden, this girl walks up, and she looks at me, and I said, I know you, and we shook hands, and we have been together ever since, which is just absolute...
As I said, are you Saratoga? She said, no, I'm from Monmouth.
Monmouth, she never said hello to me once. The
The
best part is she told me, I'd see you at Monmouth, and you look too serious. Well, she now knows that was an illusion.
Very good.
Fantastic girl.
Saratoga, the luckiest place in the world.
There's no question.
Frank, we appreciate the visit, and as I say, you're coming back a little later in the meet, so maybe we'll get you to sit in again.
Hopefully, if we don't bring you bagels today with these selections, particularly Mama Mary, I put my reputation that she will run.
All right, we're looking forward to it. Frank Miramati. Frank, appreciate it. As promised before the break, we are joined now by Jersey Joe Bravo. Joe, good morning.
Good morning. Good to see you, Seth.
Happy to have you on board here on a nice Thursday morning up at Saratoga, and we'll talk a little bit about Saratoga season. You're going to be out at Del Mar on the weekend, and much, much more. A great weekend last weekend out at Monmouth as well, but I always like to ask the jockeys when they step in, how'd you get into the game and reading bio information? You had the family connection.
Yeah, I mean, can you believe I tried out for the basketball league? They cut me, man. I can't believe it. But we're going to try tonight's basketball, okay? Listen, just because as a kid I didn't make it out to the NBA, tonight I'm going to try to, too. But no, going back to that, my father was a jockey. My grandfather was a jockey. My kids, as growing up, all the toys were jockey whips, helmets, and, yeah.
So, did you go to the track a lot as a kid?
That was home.
And when did you start riding?
Officially or unofficially? I rode my official race at 16 years old, but I was riding match races when I was 11 years old in Texas.
Really?
So that's where I kind of like, you know how you do your education, and I didn't go to make it to college, but my college days were living in Texas. I spent the years from 11 years old to 16 riding match races. It gave me a lot of great experience. At the time when I went to ride races, I might have hundreds of races I've already rode, but they were just quarter horse races.
Yeah.
I wasn't thoroughbred, so I had to adapt to a little slower pace.
Gave you the good
Save
background.
some horse. You don't have to go a full quarter mile.
Yeah, there you go. And again, the reference to the basketball game tonight, that's a good opportunity just to tout it again. Right down the street, Saratoga Rec Center, Vanderbilt Avenue, 6:30, right after the races, the Jockeys basketball game. It's always a lot of fun. I think I'm going to be on the other. I think I'm going to. They pulled me back in, I think, to see if I can get a basket 2 years in a row.
Don't be guarding me too hard, okay? Listen, you know, I'm not 21. I'm not trying to be a superstar on the court.
I don't know. I went up and tried to guard a couple of jockeys last year, and boom, right by me. Yeah, so
They're fast.
Yeah, no question about it. Talk a little bit about, again, getting back to the beginning of your career. I'm always interested, and most people do. You remember your first winner?
Of course. My first winner was a horse called Daffy Dack for trainer Louis Oliveras. I had no idea what I was doing. I was holding on, screaming, praying. The horse ran fast, and we won.
I always say, and I'll ask if you agree, when I'm handicapping and there's a 10-pound apprentice on board, I love it when they're on speed horses because I always think all you have to do is come out of the gate and just keep going.
Exactly. Let them stay out of the way and just, yep.
Yeah. You remember your first trip to Saratoga? Did you come here before you were a jockey with relatives that rode?
No, I was not lucky enough for that. I came here and I rode my first race, and I forgot how I did my first time to Saratoga. I think I was probably like a deer in headlights coming to Saratoga because anybody been here, look how much going on. You can't replica like this anywhere in the country. You walk the backside in the morning, you're liable to be talking to anybody. There's just so much going on at one time. It's pretty special. You know, you're blessed to be here. You know, I am.
And I'll ask you, you know, as a jockey from that side of the game, because certainly as a fan, it's a lot of fun to be up here and see the jockeys walking through the crowd. And I think the crowd up here is so knowledgeable. It's got to be fun for you guys, you know, walking to the paddock and then coming out of the winner's circle and walking back to the jocks room, the fans with the autographs. And as they say, they're so knowledgeable up here.
I guess this statement's only for people who've really been into horse racing, but if you're a jockey, been riding Aqueduct Belmont, and then they tell you you got to go through Saratoga and walk through the stands, I was petrified. I said, oh, wait a minute. If I have a 1-5 shot and get beat, those New York fans will kill you. They're great, though. I mean, they really, it's the same people from New York that come up here, but everybody's like in a good mood, and it's like a vacation for New York racing. And they showcase the best horses they have in the barn up here. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, it is a great venue, and I always say it's more than just inside the fences. It's outside the fences where you're downtown eating dinner. People are talking about yesterday's double and tomorrow's triple. It's always a lot of fun. I'll ask you, because again, nicknamed Jersey Joe Bravo, and in a second we're going to take a look at a great weekend down at Monmouth last weekend, and so you're still tied into New Jersey racing. When I pulled up the Equibase stats, if these are still legitimate, 13 Monmouth riding titles, 9 titles at the Meadowlands. And as a guy that has ridden over the years a lot of times down in New Jersey, I just want to ask, with the sports betting going in, a couple of days after it went in, we talked to one of the vice presidents down at Monmouth. We had Frank Miramonti here the other day. And it seems like after a period where things were a little shaky, there's some more optimism now in New Jersey.
Yeah, you definitely see some sunshine ahead of us there at Monmouth track. I mean, ever since the sports began, you could just see even like the crowds. Everybody's kind of going in there, and it's putting a whole new twist into racing. When I was down there last weekend for the Haskell, it was pretty wild that you could bet on a horse to win by a nose. You could bet on a horse to win by 5 lengths. Horse for horse. It's a complete. I've been riding for 30 years, and it makes a whole new twist in racing. I think it's going to generate a lot more buzz about it. We're going to find out. It's a whole new venture, and I'd say I got to take my hat off to Dennis Drazen. I mean, he was really the fortune behind it all. He really he slaved over it, and he's done a great job.
And when the decision was made in Washington, they were ready to go.
Yeah, it's pretty fun to see how it's going and see what kind of direction it goes. But it's generating a lot. I think it's all positive.
Yeah, they had a pick 4 the other day with horse races and baseball games.
Yeah,
like
I mean, how do you come up with that? But it's amazing. It's great.
But you're based up here this summer. However, you did make the trip down to New Jersey last weekend, and we wanted to touch on some of the nice stakes action down there in the Ocean Port. We're going to watch the stretch drive here, number 2 Synchrony with Joe Bravo aboard. Chart margin of 1 2/4 lengths. But there was a little
bit closer with him. I didn't want to have to make up that much ground, but we got slammed leaving the gate, and what a professional this horse is. He took the bounce in, he relaxed good, and I mean, he really conducted himself great. He was breathing, he was settled. The biggest thing with turf racing, having a horse turn off. You can't have them keen because they're not going to give you that turn of foot as you've seen Synchrony did here, turning for home. It was a pretty small hole, and he's just such a horse that's willing to do it. That all I had to do was point him to it, and he just overcame everything that had happened in the beginning of the race.
You get in trouble, but you get a nice ride up the rail there.
Professional, yeah, pure professional. I'm really excited to see what this horse has in the future. He's got a lot of talent.
Yeah, Michael Stidham trainee, and you had ridden him in some starts before, and we've been right in the thick of things going back to the fairgrounds as well, and we'll talk a little bit more about the fairgrounds in a moment. But I also wanted to show the Molly Pitcher, because it's our friends at West Point, Rob Masiello and West Point, and Burned, and they were looking for the graded stakes win. I was talking to them the other day, and they said, hey, they were right there, and the horse has shown a lot of talent, but you got it for them on Sunday. This is the Molly Pitcher. Burned is the number 8 horse here. Opens up a nice little lead, gets kind of chased late, but still holds him off by 3/4 of a length. Really nice performance there in the West Point colors.
Yeah, I hate to really staple her as a horse for course, but she runs some really big races here. I mean, this race here today, I got into her a little bit early, and man, she made a middle move around the turn and got to the lead a little bit too early, and I was like, okay, I got the race won. I started to ease up here, I'm like, oh, who's this one? And you can feel the shadow. All I had to do was ask her, and she kind of kicked in again. She's a pretty fun horse to ride. Push button for us, and let's see what the future has for her to bring too. I mean, she ran a big effort. She only won by a little bit, but I think she had more if I had to do it.
Yeah, as I say, fun to root for
And
friends
it's a
at
great
West
team.
Point.
I mean, West Point's got so many good partners. I mean, and I had Tom Durkin say, "Hey Joe, thanks. I had a piece of her." I mean, who doesn't own a piece of Burned? I mean, I'm here in Saratoga, and I got thanked by everybody, and it's pretty fun to deal with good people.
Yeah, I have stood in front of the big screen down on the bottom floor of the clubhouse watching West Point horses run out here, and the whole crew is there, and they have a great time as well, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah. And Terry Finley's done a great job with the whole organization. I don't even know how many years they've been in business, but I remember when they first come around with John Dow, they were just kind of getting their feet wet in horse racing, and now they're one of the major competitors out there, and I'm proud of them. They've got a great stable behind
Yeah,
them.
and Rob Masiello owns part of the horse too, and I had him on the other day, and he said he called up Terry when he was still in college. He said, I don't have any money now, but I want to jump in when I have some money. So they got him tied in, and now he's out owning on his own as well. Coming up this weekend, just want to touch a little bit because you have a runner out in the yellow ribbon at Del Mar, so you'll be headed out there. Grass race, obviously, and we're going to look at Hallie Bell. We're going to go back to the fairgrounds last November. Nice little allowance win on Hallie Bell. She is going to be the number 11 horse here, 3 to 5 that day in a field of 10 down on the turf at fairgrounds. Most recently, you were out at Arlington, ran 3rd in the Modesty Honor. Talk a little bit about Hallie Bell and what you expect on Saturday.
Yeah, this was the first time you're showing the replay now of me sitting on her, and I really didn't know what I was sitting on, and it was a good Dolphin horse, so she's going to just keep blossoming to be a better filly as she gets older, and she really showed a lot of talent in this race. I wish you could see the last race in Arlington. That was a big effort. She made up a lot of ground on the heavy favorite that day, but around the turn, I had a horse to break down in front of us, and we lost some pretty good ground. Okay. She got shuffled back more than I wanted to be, and she probably closed better than anybody in her last effort. So I'm really expecting a big effort this Saturday out there at Del Mar. Last night when the PPs come out, I was very happy with her post position. That helps a lot, post when turf racing. And there was plenty of gas. I mean, I counted at least 4, maybe 5 speed horses in the race, so at least it's honest pace. You hate to go to a place where you're a horse, you're coming from out of it, it's a speed course, and there's no pace, but I think the race could set up really good. Mike, he knows when to run them. He's really, Stidham's, he knows his horse is so good, so when he steps up to a grade 2 race, I want to be there with him.
Still fairly lightly raced too. That Modesty was only start number 8, and as you say, if you watch the Godolphin horses, they do kind of take their time and get better over time.
They do. I mean, they're not looking to, do anything first time. They develop an animal to be really something down the road.
You said when the PPs came out, I always like to ask the jockeys when they stop in here what your habits are in preparing for a race. It seems like it runs the gamut for folks who really sit down and study the PPs and pull up replays, to folks who are a little more casual and just get in the paddock and let the trainer tell me what he wants and then play it by ear as the gates open. What's your game plan?
I was going to make it a little fun. We're on a group text message. It's kind of funny. My agent Jimmy Riccio and Mike Stidham and his Hillary Stidham were all on the group text. They call me Joey Byer because the minute the PPs come out, I'll go through and my quick thing is, and you don't lean everything on Byer numbers, but it's for a great guideline just to get the first initial, and I'll go through and I'm like, man, our Byers look good today. Joey Byer approves. It's just something funny that we kind of play and laugh at. They pick on me. It's okay.
I'm a Byer guy too as a handicapper. Some people use them, some people don't. I always say it's a tool in the toolbox. But are you a guy who relies on replays, or? And I'm assuming all the jocks say this too. It's just somebody who's been riding on the circuits. As you have, you get to know the habits of the other riders too, and I think that plays into it.
Yeah, I mean, in horse racing, don't lean on any one thing. There's so many factors you got to take in. I mean, when you're riding every day with a colony of riders, they're like your brothers. You know what everybody's going to do. But you got to take into factors the track, the pace of the race, the position you have. I mean, there's so much. And just use every bit of information you can because it always helps. You got the groom coming by to you and telling you in the morning, man, this horse has been great in the morning. I mean, so all that information helps in your factor.
Sure. I wanted to show one more replay just because the grade ones are so nice, and you had a really nice grade one earlier this year. One of the better performances of the year. Unfortunately, we haven't seen Army Mule come back out of this, but the Carter going back to April down at Aqueduct. Army Mule is going to be the number 2 horse here. Chart margin of 6 1/4. This was start number 3 from this horse. When you get on and you're in a race like this, do you feel like, oh man, I'm on a Cadillac?
You know when you told me I was on a Cadillac? I walked into the paddock, and we have Todd Pletcher and Vinny Viola standing side by side, and I walk up, and their first words were, Joe, serious horse. And the voice of saying, serious horse. And, you know, we could all read his paper. He run some nice races prior to this, and he was a good horse, yes. I mean, what you seen that day was just spectacular. I mean, he is an amazing animal, and Todd comes up with him. I mean, he don't just, he knows what he has.
Yeah.
He's one of the best horsemen you're going to see in our decade. I mean, and it was just nice for me to be able to sit on a horse that was that good.
You talked about the race we watched earlier where you opened up a little lead, then felt the horse coming. When you're in a race like that, do you get the sense that, oh, okay, I'm good?
Somebody coming? It had to be a jet plane catching me that day. I was on OTB Mule. You know when a horse is running underneath you. Just like when you're going on the highway and you don't think you're breaking the speed limit. I broke the speed limit from the quarter pole to the wire that day. It was really a good time.
Yeah, very good. Let me ask you a couple of just background and nuts and bolts questions. First, I want to go back to the fairgrounds because I pulled up the Equibase chart. You had a really nice season. We that's in our mix in the handicapping that time of year, the afternoon programming. So we were watching, and I just had the sense you were having a good meet. But I went back 27% on the win side down at fairgrounds. What was the impetus for going down there this winter?
I take my hat off again. Mike Stidham. Mike Stidham got my ear a few years ago, asked me to go down. I was like, I'm a little wishy-washy about it. And went down there. First month, I was a little lost. Didn't know what restaurants to go to. Didn't know what exactly. I cried leaving there. I was thinking it was a great move. It's a great place to develop a 3-year-old. They have a great trail to bring up a horse. Their course is amazing. Talk about rainstorms. They had some rainstorms. The turf was good. The main track dried out. Amazing. It was really good racing, and I'm excited about trying to get back down there this winter. You really could find some good horses for the springtime. Wintertime racing is really about developing a horse and trying to get them ready for the 3-year-old trail of the spring, and that's a place that you really can. It's a great surface, and I just can't praise the place enough. And Mike Stidham was the one that got me to go down there and open my eyes to what a great facility it is.
Yeah, and as I say, you had a great meet down there, a nice high percentage on the win side. Yeah. And so where should we go if we go down to eat?
Oh, man, there's so many places there.
You go wrong down there.
I lived right in the middle of the city, and I walked at all the good spots, and yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Before we let you go, I had one more question because we did a seminar Tuesday night, and Maggie Wolfendale was there as well. And somebody asked, she of course does the great paddock commentary looking at the horses, and somebody asked, well, what about when they come out on the track? And then the conversation went to warm-ups and kind of the purpose of warm-ups. Talk a little bit from a jockey's perspective. Is that something we should watch, and are there takeaways we can get from that? If you're on the track and maybe you have a nervous horse and so you warm up one way, you want speed out of the gate, you warm up another way. What is the jockey's take on warm-ups?
Man, that's really funny. I just left my house and the cleaning lady was asking me, hey, when I'm there watching, what do I look at a horse in post-parade to see if he's going to be good? Because you see them all jumping around. Because they're jumping around, don't mean it's always a good thing. They're positive and negatives. If they're positive, like forward, and everything's like aggressive and going forward into it, yeah, that's a good thing. It's kind of like looking at your dog every day. You see a horse jumping around, but everything's negative and his head shy's going back. It's a negative thing. So you don't think that's the same thing in the race. I mean, but just because like that day, don't mean they're going to be like that tomorrow in their next start. So watch the post-parade. It tells them a lot. Like I said earlier, taking every factor you can. Just because you handicap on paper doesn't mean that's going to come out when the gates open. Take in post-parade. See if the horse has that positive manner. You know, don't ever lean on one thing.
Yeah, I'm not good at that, the physicality of it, because they all look great to me. But I've been kind of getting a little bit better, as you say, at the post-parades and kind of picking things out, and I'm trying to improve on that, to maybe parse things out.
Those horses, they don't talk. They talk. Trust me, they
I
talk.
like that. Yeah, very good. Joe, we appreciate the visit certainly this morning. I know how busy things can be for you guys in the mornings, but congratulations on the great weekend down in Monmouth last weekend. Good luck going forward up here for the rest of the season, particularly out at Del Mar on Saturday.
Thanks. Let's survive the weekend. It's really exciting, and let's have some fun the next couple weeks here. It's
Basketball.
great,
Basketball tonight, too. Joined now by Robertina Diodoro. As I said at the top of the show, I'm sure he's become a familiar name to everybody out in the audience, as he has appeared in New York after having successful seasons at many venues around the country, but his first season up here at Saratoga last year, and as I say, now familiar name, but I thought we'd take a couple of minutes to maybe introduce you to him personally. Thanks for stopping by.
No, thanks for having me.
Happy to have you join us. And doing a little bio research last night, I always like to ask trainers this: how did you get into the game? And as many trainers, it looks like kind of a family thing pulled you in.
Yeah, no, I was born into it. My mom's side of the family was always into it, and I was actually just kind of born at the racetrack. I was always around it.
And tell us the steps that brought you to becoming a licensed trainer.
My grandpa he was just a small trainer, just had 2-3 horses all the time, and he had one horse left. I took over, and when I was 17, 18 on the bush tracks up in Canada, and here we are today.
Yeah, it's interesting, you know, the path you've taken, and we'll get into that a little bit. You remember your first winner?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Everybody seems to remember that. What was the name?
Manchu Prince.
Was that on one of the bush tracks, or was that when you moved on?
That was a track. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
You still have the photo posted?
Oh yeah,
something like
yeah.
Everybody seems to remember that. It's funny. I was at the Andy Serling radio show when you were on with him last year. I don't know whether you're going to remember the answer to this, but if you don't, I'll remind you. But you were talking about the early years. You trained up in Canada, and there's no winter racing there. And so Andy said, "Well, what did you do in the winter?"
Yeah. Sold Christmas trees. Yeah.
Christmas tree salesman by night, trainer by day. Very good.
You go.
Now, of course, and you hit my radar here on the OTB network. We do a lot of handicapping shows, and it was probably 6-7 years ago. We were doing the morning handicapping show, and every week we would have Michael Chamberlain from Turf Paradise and do a little handicapping. So that's when you kind of started to hit my radar. But going back to before when you made the move to the States and had the winter base, and again going to Canada where you didn't have winter racing, I'm just curious because it's still that way in Canada. Woodbine will shut down for the winter, Fort Erie, and if you watch those races in the spring, a lot of the horses won't have run since the last meet. What do you do with the horses in the wintertime?
Yeah, it's tough for those the local people up there. Just where we used to spring train up there. You start in January, and minus 30 weather.
Yeah.
It's tough, and. That's one of the reasons why I started coming down to the States is the weather, and going back up to Canada in the spring with fit horses and horses that have been winter raced.
So when a track closes like that and there's the winter, you just find a farm for them and they just run around in the snow for a couple months?
Yeah.
And then how do you prepare them to get back to the race? And then are those, just from a handicapping standpoint, are we smart to think, they probably need a race?
Yeah. No, definitely, in Alberta, the big angle on handicapping was any horses that came out of California and Arizona. That's the two places where guys would go by and claim horses, and those horses were pretty tough to outrun the first month of racing in Alberta.
As you said, eventually down to the States, and as you hit my radar screen at Turf Paradise, and it was fun to watch you. You were a high percentage guy down there, and subsequently saw you make the move out to Southern California and do well there, and then migrate east. Oak Lawn is one of my favorite winter tracks, and you've been there, and now the past couple of seasons up in New York. And I went and looked at Equibase, going back to results over the past couple of days and entries going forward a couple more days. Horses at Canterbury, Monmouth, Evangeline, Laurel, Saratoga, and Prairie Meadows. I'm just going to ask the nuts and bolts of that. I'm assuming if we had gone back 20 years before the internet and cell phones, that would have been almost impossible. I think technology has to play into that kind of a thing.
Oh, definitely. It'd be impossible to do it without, like you said, the technology, and got to have good help too. Technology and good help, and that's been a big part of our success the last couple of years is having great help and good team put together.
Talk a little bit about, with that many tracks, you're obviously poring over that many condition books. How does that process work? Do the assistants point you to, let's think about this spot, this spot, this spot? Are you going through all those condition books on a regular basis?
I go through them regularly, but at different tracks we have different systems, and some tracks my assistant does the intern, and other tracks I do it. But overall, I mean, between the phone and my iPad, I'm on it 24/7.
Yeah,
so.
I could imagine. As they say, without the technology, it seems like that would be hard to do. As I was driving in this morning, I thought to ask you a question that I have not asked any other trainer, but I should ask them all. And I don't know whether you'll have a clever answer or not, but I'm just curious. To me, training is something you have to have a real passion for. It's a tough job. You're up early, and it's really a 24/7, 365 taking care of horses, and you have to please the owners. You have to get the wins. So, what makes you enjoy being a trainer? What's the best part about being a trainer?
Competitiveness. I mean, I love horses, but winning is. I think as I get older, I'm getting worse. I hate losing. I guess that's a good thing, but the competitiveness. You know, I've always been competitive and anything I've done, and like I said, love horses, and then the winning of a race is the best feeling ever. And when you're on a roll, it's the best feeling. But of course, when you hit a slump, which we've all been there before, it's not so much fun.
Yeah, at the percentage you do, it must be happy time. You've been in the top 5, 5th in wins nationally in 2017, 4th in 2016. Currently, you're sitting 3rd nationally. Some of the titles recently, you were 2nd at Oaklawn this year. You were 1st down at Turf Paradise over the 2017-2018 season. I wanted to go to Oaklawn, though. How long have you been racing at Oaklawn?
This coming year will be our 5th year.
And just like to get your impression of Oaklawn, mainly because clearly you're a claiming guy. You like the claiming game. You've had some stakes winners as well, so I'm not saying you're only in the claiming game, but clearly that's something you play and play at a high level. And during the year, we'll talk a lot with Nancy Holthus down at Oaklawn, and we talk about, boy, the claim box is on fire at Oaklawn, so that must be a meet you really enjoy.
Oh, it's the biggest rush ever. I mean, the people really get into it, the whole town, and it's good racing, big fields, and like you said, the claiming, it's a rush. It's at the end of it's roughly a 3.5 month meet. When you're done that meet, you need a little break. It's stressful, but it's exciting. It's a rush.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite meets to play during the year. And again, it's fun just to watch that claiming game go along. And then even at the end of the meet, and you had a lot of those, the horses that you claimed towards the end of the meet and then go to other venues. Because I always feel, from a handicapping standpoint, I think horses leave Oaklawn with a fitness advantage.
Yeah, I mean, that track can get a little deeper, and yeah, you're probably right. I mean, they seem to definitely go on and win all over the country. So
yeah, for me, that's kind of a handicapping angle in that month or 6 weeks after Oaklawn ends. Talk a little bit about the claiming game for folks who maybe aren't familiar. What is your process? Do you sit down and talk with the owners? Do the owners give you a call? Hey, I'm looking at a horse. How do you decide which horses you're going to dip in for in the claiming game?
A little bit of both. Sometimes the owners will contact me, but I always say I'm only one person, so we're a team, and I got a couple guys behind the scenes that watch replays and read the sheets for me. My assistants, they're on top of things as well, watching horses, their previous race in the paddock and receiving barn, but it's all a team effort. Like I said, I'm only one person, and I'd be lying to you if I told you I read sheets and replays and etc. So we all put it all together by morning of each race day.
And take us through the process. I had Gary Gullo in yesterday, and we talked a little bit about it from the claiming side. But what is, when you decide we're going to go for that horse this afternoon, what is the actual process that you undertake?
Up here, my assistant, he's the one that fills out the claims, and either one of us or both of us, we start at the receiving barn on the golf cart and slowly make our way up to the paddock. Unless it's a horse that we've had previously, that's different. We usually just hit the claim box, but a horse that we've never claimed before, it's it's a 20-minute or so process, and to do it right, and then lots of time there's a phone call involved too. It depends on what owner it is. So.
You mentioned the sheets. This is something I have asked trainers in the past. I'm guessing then speed figures play into your training in some fashion. And what figures do you like to use?
I'm not a sheets guy.
Okay.
I got a couple guys again that read sheets and that. I'm not saying I'm a believer in it, but I think part of it too is I'm not a gambler, so I don't bet. Okay. So I know a lot of the handicappers definitely believe in the sheets. I like to watch replays. I like to, see a horse in the morning or in a previous race, in the paddock, his appearance, and especially young horses, how they're put together.
Talk a little bit about Saratoga. This is your second season up here now. What are your impressions of Saratoga racing and just the community in general?
No, it definitely reminds me a lot of Oaklawn, how the town gets into it. You stop at Starbucks in the morning, there's someone in there with a racing form, or Dunkin' Donuts. You go for dinner at night. The guys got their sports coats in their hand and their racing forms all wrinkled up in their back pockets still. So it's a great atmosphere, and like I said, it does remind me a lot of Oaklawn, how the town gets behind it.
Are you based up here during the meet?
I stay here most of the time. I've rented a place up here the last 2 years, and I'm up here most of the meet.
No, and I'm assuming that the frequent flyer miles must be totaling up, though.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of traveling.
Which, again, if you're competitive and you're playing the game at the high level you are, and with these various venues, that's got to be fun and rewarding because you're doing well at all the various venues. Speaking of doing well, first I wanted to pull up one of your wins from the meet and just let folks take a look at a Robertina Doro winner. We're going to go back to July 30th, watch the stretch run of a nice little starter allowance race. This is going to be number 8, Special Relativity, under the jockey who's pretty much regularly riding for you, David Cohen. Wins by a couple of lengths. Nice little filly that had started in one of these races similarly in Belmont. The previous start, you had claimed her a couple of starts before this win, so always nice to get a win up at Saratoga.
No, definitely, and she didn't get the perfect trip the first time we ran her back here. On paper, we loved the race, loved drawing the outside with her, and David did a great job with her. Just off the pace a little bit, and like I said, I think the outside post definitely helped her. But she's a nice big filly. She's nice horse.
Yeah, a nice win. Always nice to get some wins up at Saratoga, and you have a little pocket full of them at this point. And I also had to go, as I was looking on Equibase, I had to pull up this race. I don't know whether I've ever shown a replay from Asanobia Downs before, but the Manitoba Derby. I wanted to show this. You finished 1-2-4 in here, so it's a Robertino Diodoro Exacta, but we're going to watch the number 4 Sky Promise win. And as I say, I had to pull this up because just kind of digging a little bit. You had claimed the horse previously down at Churchill Downs. Did you have this race in mind when you claimed the horse?
Yeah.
That's a nice claim.
There's a little series of derbies up in Canada, and I got a lot of owners that are still from up there, and we like to go through the little derby trail up there. So this horse had a friend and a guy behind the scenes, Cody Autry, picked this horse out for me, and he was bound and determined this horse could run on the dirt. He was all grass horse before, and he was right. Horse ran a big race on the dirt.
That's a nice claim. Claimed him for 40. Claimed him down at Churchill, and then take him up to Assiniboia. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yep, Assiniboia Downs.
And is that the western part of Canada?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you. Yeah, a little more east, but
okay.
It's a part
I'm
of
not sure where
part of the prairies.
Okay.
Yeah.
And as I was reading a little bit comments after that race, and you mentioned the series of derbies, the Canadian Derby at Northlands on the 25th. Next for that one.
Yeah. We got a couple up there already, and that's a week this Saturday, the 25th.
That was nice. A crafty claim. So good job done there. And again, appreciate the visit this morning. Wanted to introduce people to you as, again, your name has become more prominent here in New York, but folks are familiar all over the country, and certainly will become more familiar as we go forward. As I say, a little pocket full of wins already at Saratoga. We wish you a lot of luck going forward.
No, appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Robertina Diodoro.